Welcome to Heroes Have Wings, the podcast that gives a voice to the unsung heroes of Army aviation. I'm your host, Jason Santiago. For the Army aviators, crew chiefs, and flight medics who put it all on the line in the heat of battle, this is their opportunity to share untold stories of courage, sacrifice, and unbreakable will. From their beginnings to the battlefield, you hear about their hardships, the moments of doubt, and how they overcame impossible odds to save lives. These warriors didn't just fight for survival, they put others above themselves, embodying the true spirit of heroism and selfless service. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Heroes Have Wings.
Today's guest is proof that the road to becoming a warrior isn't always straight, and that's exactly what makes his story powerful. Joe Wonacott grew up in small-town Paradise, California, the black sheep in a blue-collar family. But when most would settle, he decided to rise. He became a paratrooper, a Night Stalker, and eventually earned the title he always dreamed of, an Army aviator. He served for 20 years across some of the most elite units in the military, from the 101st Airborne to the 160th SOAR. But his biggest battles weren't just on the battlefield. They were internal. In 2014, he faced the truth that combat changes a man. But Joe didn't fold. With God, counseling, and purpose, he found a new mission: building, coaching, and serving others with love and humility. Today, he's not here for medals. He's here to remind you, you're not alone, you're not broken, and your story isn't finished. This is a man who leads with empathy, lives with faith, and shows what redemption looks like at all times. Joe Wonacott, welcome to Heroes Have Wings.
What's up, brother?
What's up, Joe?
How you doing, man?
Good, man. Shit, seeing your face reminds me instantly of us being in Afghanistan together.
Well, I'm sure there's some memories that go along with that face.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that, man. How you been?
I've been good, man. How about you?
I've been well, very well. I've been blessed. I mean, shit, you look good, bro.
Thanks, man. So do you.
Appreciate it. You know, we're getting a little bit older now, so we gotta make sure we work out and keep the extra pounds off.
Bro, it's with all the gray hair, you got to keep the pounds off.
All right, man, let's get into it. Quick hits.
Let's do it.
Coffee, energy drinks.
Coffee.
City life, country living.
Country living.
Summer heat, winter cold.
Summer heat.
Movies or books.
Movies. I hate reading.
Dog person, cat person.
Dogs.
Beach vacation, mountain retreat.
Mountain retreat.
Wake up early, stay up late.
Both.
You ever sleep?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
Action movies or comedies?
I like both, man. Like, it just depends on the mood. If I want to laugh, I'm gonna listen to comedy. If I want some action, I'll watch some action. So both, man. I ain't got a preference.
All right, perfect. Camping or road trip?
I like to camp, but I love to get on the road too, man. I love going out and seeing the U.S. and different areas, man. So it's a little bit of both, but if I had to pick one, it's probably camping.
Texting or calling?
I get mad at people that text because I don't get to talk to you, but half the time I don't want to talk to you. So, that's tough, dude. And I can get into more of that later as far as, stuff like that. But I don't know, probably calling, man. It's good to hear people's voices.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, man. Just so you know, I'm excited to have you on the show today. I really am.
I am too, man.
Man, it's good to see you, bro. All right, let's get it started. Let's jump right into it head first. Let's talk about you growing up, Paradise, California. What that look like?
Let's see. Paradise is a great town. I think there's 20,000 people, 25,000 people in the town growing up. It's on a ridge in the mountains up in Northern California. Blue-collared family. Dad worked at the phone company. My mom stayed home. It was good, man. Truly blessed in the sense of where I got to grow up. Looking back, just lucky, man. My neighbors were like grandparents. Grew up, shooting birds and squirrels, staying home from school so we could shoot squirrels. down in the canyons. Like it was always on the move, always in the woods. You know, our neighbors growing up, every day after school, if the windows were open, you could go. We were getting cookies. It was cool, man. And then, you know, my other neighbor, he was a helicopter pilot. So we get into that later, but, you know, Paradise was a good town. I'd say the flip side of that was if you ain't focused and you don't have a mission, there's a lot of trouble to get into up here.
Yeah. So Paradise was essentially paradise. That picturesque
Paradise,
American small town. You know, everybody knew each other, close community.
yeah.
Perfect.
Yep. Yeah. So when I was doing donuts in the parking lot in my 65 Mustang, all my parents' friends knew, and how they found out, I didn't realize back in the day. You know, it's your dumb son's doing donuts in the parking lot. But yeah, everyone found out real quick what you were doing in this town.
How the hell did you get a 65 Mustang that young?
Bro, I mean, it's a long story. Like, I had good parents. My dad was a car guy.
Okay.
And, like my connection with my dad was through cars. You know, he had a 9-to-5 job, or, you know, an 8-to-3 job. And when he got home, his focus was getting on that car and working on cars. So I naturally just followed in them footsteps. And I was kind of a troubled kid, and I don't know how you want to segue into that, but, cars was kind of our way of, having a bond. So I'd wrecked a couple of cars already, and I was trying to make my recovery and be responsible. And I'll never forget, I picked up the wheels and deals, and I saw a 65 Mustang on there for $3,500. And this is 95. And I circled it and I said, it's mine. And I remember going and sitting next to my dad in his chair, and I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And I handed it to him, and he looked and kind of laughed at me like, yeah, whatever. But sure enough, you know, I did some work, and we went in halves, and I bought a Mustang at, I don't know, I was 17 years old. I'd already wrecked my Volkswagen Bug. I've already wrecked another car. And, just like my dad kind of the same, growing up, 15 tickets, which I didn't know at the time. He was wrecking cars, drag racing. So that's how I ended up with a 65, man.
Your parents, they still together right now?
No, my dad passed in 2002.
Okay.
But my mom married Rod, and just a great guy, man. So she married a good man. He's a retired, sheriff's deputy. He's been in the family for it's been 15 years already. But yeah, no, my dad passed, in 2002.
With him passing, because you were pretty early, you were what, 17 at that time? 19?
When he passed,
Yeah.
I was 22 or 23 getting ready. No, I was 24. I was 24 when he passed.
How did you losing your father impact you at that young age?
Oh man, it was huge. So I'll kind of give a backstory, because it kind of leads up. My dad passing and my childhood's kind of like, it's the segue into what my purpose in life was. So I'll get back to that question, but it's going to be a long answer. So growing up, man, I had some childhood traumas happen to me, when I was real young. And my parents were awesome, man. Like, good parents, roof over the house, over our heads, food on the table. But that generation, I don't think they were really good with communication like I think our generation is with our kids. Or at least in my family. It wasn't that they didn't care. I just don't think they had the tools available. Like, how do we handle certain situations? So anyway, that childhood trauma led to a lot of insecurities and just, you know, suppressed issues. And that led into me just being a rebellion. Always in trouble in school, searching for friends, trying to figure out who I was. Well, into high school.
You don't have to answer this, Joe, but would you mind lightly touching on what the childhood trauma was?
Yeah, so I was sexually assaulted as a young kid.
Damn.
Yeah. And man, dude, like, you know, there's so much shame that comes with that, dude. When there's no outlet, and, you know, you're 5 years old, 6 years old, and you're holding on to that, and you don't know how to talk about it. Your parents don't know how to talk about it. Bro, that was tough, man. And, it creates biases in your life that you don't realize until you're older and you have your own kids. But, yeah, so that just led to me not knowing who I was, not being confident in who I was, and just being in trouble, man. I was constantly looking for, an adrenaline rush or, getting into trouble, and like that adrenaline. And I'm not sitting here saying I'm an adrenaline junkie, but it was just being defiant. So part of that was being defiant with my family, man. And I carried a lot of guilt in my life, the way I treated my parents, man. Like I took money from them out of the little box in the desk so I could buy extra stuff at school. I wrecked their cars. So I was in Phoenix in 2000, and no, in 1999, I was in Phoenix and I got a call. I was building houses. I had a successful job building homes. I was on the path to becoming a home builder, having my own business. And then I got a call that, hey, Dad's got cancer. I was like, all right, cool. Well, we can make it through it. It was a shock, but my dad was super confident. Like, hey, no big deal. We'll get through this. 6 months later, it's continuing to get worse. So my dad was a Marine. He always thought that every man should do some kind of service. And I remember him telling me that. And I think that was his way of like, hey, dude, you need to grow up, go join the military, and they'll fix you. So when I found out that he was sick and he was going to continue to be sick, my brother had joined the Army 6 months prior. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to join. I'll go show my dad like, hey, look, man, I'll go prove this to you that I'm a man. And I was at the time, but I wanted him to see that. So I joined the Army, thought I was going to go right into flight school. And, yeah, no, that wasn't happening. I had 7 moral waivers just to get in. So I went to the recruiter in Phoenix and I was like, hey, I want to be a helicopter pilot. And he laughed at me. And then I ended up being an engine mechanic.
You mentioned your brother. You had 2 brothers, right?
I got an older brother and a younger sister.
Okay. How was your relationship with your siblings growing up?
Oh, they're great, man. My brother and I fought every day, beat the crap out of each other. My parents bought me an old World War II grenade that they hollowed out the bottom of it. You know, the old ones you go to the Army surplus store. Like we'd have pine cone wars, bro, and we'd throw them at each other. Our friends would come over, and then my parents let us buy a grenade. Well, what do you think we did with that grenade? We threw it at each other, dude. So I got a 1 pound, 2 pound grenade getting lobbed at me as a kid, bro. It was wild. Yeah. So
How was so your dad passed away, and we're going to continue with that story. I just didn't want to get too ahead, but how was the relationship with your mom growing up and during the time your dad passed away?
It was good, man. So, my mom being a stay-at-home mom was good. Like I put her through some trials, but she was solid, man. They forgave a lot of things that I did. So I've always been really close with my mom, man. And then when my dad passed away, we got a really tight family. My aunt, my grandparents, all really tight. So when my dad passed, we even got closer. So yeah, my relationship with my mom's solid, dude.
That's good.
Always
man.
has been.
That relationship with your mom and dad growing up and seeing that they always gave you grace, which parents normally do, and they loved you the way they loved you. How did that make an impression on you as you became a husband and became the man you are today and the father you are?
I think initially getting married, I don't think it had a deep impact, but like cognizantly on a day to day, my focus was so inward that, I didn't, I was kind of young. I don't know, I was 24, 25 I think I was 25 when we got married, but I was still a kid. But later as I got older and my marriage with Angela, got longer and longer, and then having kids, it was extremely impactful, man. I look back and I think I was loved, and to be loved, man, that's so important, man. So yeah, so it was a big impact, man.
It's crazy you say that, Joe, because that's something that we take, I'm not going to say for granted, right? But when you have loving parents, that's a huge thing because there's so many kids out there that are either in the foster system and don't have parents or their parents neglect them. But if you have parents that truly love you and try to raise you and do great things for you, that already sets you up. I think it prepares you to be successful as you grow up and you move along life, as long as you as an adult make those choices. Now you joining that military. Let's pick up where you left off with that story.
Okay, so let's see. So I was in Phoenix building houses. Dad gets sick. My brother joined immediately, and I waited about 6 months, and then I joined. In September, gosh, I think it's September 15th, 2000. So almost a year right before 9/11, I joined. You know, it's been calm 10 years. You know, ain't nothing happening. I'll go in for 6 years and then I'll get out and I'll go back to building houses. And honestly, man, like the structure and then the fear of consequence in the military, that military structure, as soon as I got in, man, like I excelled immediately. It was like, oh man, like right place, right time, right uniform. I ain't got to think about what I got to do because someone's telling me what to do. This is so easy. Just execute. So it was good, man. Like, best decision I ever made in my life was, I put it this way, it was joining the military and then marrying my wife. But
There you go.
we get to that, dude.
What was your MOS?
So, see, it was, at the time it was 68 Bravo, which was a helicopter engine repair, and then became a 15 Bravo later when they reclassed that.
What made you want to fix engines? You went from building houses to now fixing engines. What was the big change there?
So when I went down to the recruiter station, like I said, I was like, hey, I want to be a pilot. And the reason I wanted to be a pilot so bad was my neighbor growing up was a helicopter pilot. And this dude would have his friends land helicopters in the backyard. And when you're, I don't know, 11, 12 years old and your neighbor's got people landing helicopters in your backyard, it's like, oh, that's what I'm doing. Now I took a long, hard, rough road to get there, but so I wanted to be a pilot right off the bat. Like I've always knew. I remember telling people in high school, like, hey, I'm going to be a helicopter pilot someday. And they're like, yeah, whatever, dude. This dude's an idiot. But when I went in saying, hey, this is what I want to do, he's like, all right, cool. You got any, background stuff that, you need to tell us about? And I was like, oh yeah. And he's like, well, you got 7 more waivers you're going to need to get in. He's like, you're not going to ever be a pilot in the Army. I was like, well, okay. I still want to join and I want to be around helicopters. So I want to be a crew chief. Oh, no, we ain't got no crew chief, but you can be an engine mechanic. So I was like, all right, cool, man. I'll be a mechanic. Not thinking he told me, he's like, you'll never be a helicopter pilot.
How did that make you feel?
At the time I was so focused on making my dad happy that I was fixing my life. It's like, all right, whatever, dude, I'll go join the military and I'll go back to what I was going to do. But once I got in and I realized that was BS, it was a different story. So, but yeah, that's how I ended up being an engine mechanic, man, was just, the recruiters.
So you find yourself basic. Where'd you do basic at?
Let's see, what was it? Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Was it hard, easy? What was it like?
Oh, it was so easy. I mean, coming off being on a crew framing houses, I was already used to, the trash talk, and working hard. So going into basic was easy. And I don't know, I was 22 when I joined. So I wasn't 18 and I was still, I don't know, I don't want to say it in a negative context, but I was still kind of an idiot. You know what I mean? But I was focused and it was easy though, man. Basic was easy.
You get any special accolades?
No special accolades. I don't know. Let's see. I did a board and the one question they asked me was, what's significant about June 14th? And the only reason I knew June 14th was it's Flag Day, and that's my sister's birthday. And that's when they introduced the black beret. And it just stuck, right? Cause you got association. So when they were like, the black beret on June 14th, that just stuck, man. It's like, oh, it's my sister's birthday. I'll never forget that. So they asked me that question in the board. And I got it right. And I was like, oh, you did so good. And I was like, I answered one question, dude, whatever. But okay. All right. That's the only special accolade I got.
Where'd you go for AIT?
Went to Fort Eustis, Virginia. So, and that was fun, man. Like I loved Fort Eustis. I was still partying, man. I was like, all right, I'm in the Army. I'm focused and this is easy. But you know how it is. You go to basic, you're locked up. You go from being who you are and who they're going to make you into, and they lock you up for 8, 9, 10 weeks. And then you get to AIT and you're on lockdown for, the first month, but then you get a good PT test and you're allowed to go out and be a civilian again. And dude, I civilianed it up. I partied hard in Virginia.
Was there any culture shock leaving Cali, going to South Carolina, then to Virginia?
Yeah, I would say, I don't know, like not in like geographically, but dude, like, so Paradise growing up, man, it's a predominantly white town, right? So I didn't grow up around anybody of color. I mean, there was some Hispanic people that lived up here. I went to school with, I think, 4 black people. The town was, back in the day, I'd say it was pretty much a racist town, and had a bad stigma to it. And I think a lot of people hang on to that, but, so not being around people of color, it was different, right? Cause I just wasn't around people, with that culture. So that was kind of a shock, man. I remember when I went to basic training, you do 2 weeks, that in processing part, where all you're allowed to do is sit on a bunk, get in line to eat food, and you wait to start basic. That was 2 weeks. That was the most miserable 2 weeks of my life. But what was cool was there was a group of black guys that were there, and I started hanging out with them because the dudes were a riot. And I didn't know. So I was like, all right, man, I'm going to hang out with these dudes. And this dude named Redmond, I don't remember his first name, and I'll never forget this dude. We'd be standing in line. This dude had a pair of like okey doke redneck dentures he'd put in when we're standing in the chow hall line, man. And I loved hanging out with that group of people, but geographically, no culture shock. I don't even want to say individually with people, but it was cool because I got to be around people in different cultures that I never got to be around. And you know how it is. Like, if you're not around something, there's a fear in that, right? And I don't want to say I was afraid of people of color or anything like that. I just didn't know. So it was cool, man. Like, I loved it.
Was AIT hard at all? Or you're already
No.
just simple, you're mechanically inclined, and engine's an engine and just burns hotter, sucks up more fuel, uses more air, you keep it pushing. Was that pretty much the case?
Yeah, that was the case, man. I mean, I grew up with my dad working on cars, so mechanically, like, that was easy. Yeah, I had no struggles through AIT. I'd say the only struggle I had was my drill sergeants. I was still kind of making that shift. My last name is easy to make fun of. And my kids don't know it yet, but they're about to find out. And I showed up to AIT, and this dude, Drill Sergeant Doherty, he's probably 5'4", 5'5", and the dude's a firecracker. And I liked him, but he walked into this little room when the first day I got there, and he called me by my last name, and he used it as, the way you make fun of it. And I thought, oh, okay, this is how this is going to start. And come to find out, he was my platoon drill sergeant. Well, anyway, I'd say the only struggle I had was I was still trying to make that transition from being a civilian to like being a soldier. So, partying in Virginia. I wasn't shining my boots like everybody else. Like, these dudes would spend the whole weekend shining their boots, glossing them, ironing their uniforms. And I was just like, let me get my PT score up so I can go out. And, to Drill Sergeant Doherty, like, it was a big deal. If he didn't have spit shine boots, then you just weren't a dedicated soldier. It's like, whatever, dude. So we butted heads a few times. He called me by my nickname in front of the whole entire company, on mail call. So you get back from school, you go eat, and then they do mail call, the whole company. So I don't know, there's 200 people out there. And he yells out my name with my mail. And I asked him, I said, you asking or offering, Drill Sergeant?
I can see your ass doing that too.
So I thought it was just going to be played off being kind of funny. And we had the volleyball court, which was the beach, and he'd smoke you, dude. So he had a boogie board, and he had a beach chair. And I said it, and he was like, just go get it. So I went and got the boogie board, and that dude smoked me for like 2 hours. And he sat down in his lawn chair with his Mountain Dew and his coffee grinds, and that dude smoked me for hours and laughed at me the whole time. But But I think I gained some respect from them after that because it all kind of changed. So it was cool. It was worth it.
What do you think your biggest takeaway was from that experience was?
Keep your mouth shut. But I didn't take that very far, bro.
What year was this happening, time frame?
So 2001, 2000, let's see, November 2000, I left basic training, get to AIT, and then I left AIT in like May of 2001. So entered 2000 basic, and then November 2000, I go to AIT, and then I leave AIT in May of 2001.
Where do you go next?
So I go Airborne school. That was fun. Loved Airborne school. I think when I got to Airborne school, that's when I really was like, because, Airborne school wasn't easy, but it wasn't hard, right? Like, you ain't got to think. You just do what you're told. And, but I liked it. That's the first time I realized I was like, okay, I like the punishment part of the military. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but I enjoyed kind of the suffering because that was the first time, like, basic training's a bunch of kids, AIT, you're just there to party, learn your school. But Airborne school, I loved the cadence calling while you're running because those dudes knew how to call cadence, man. And if you ain't never been in a platoon or a formation running in 110-degree southern weather with a canteen in your stupid pocket, beating your leg up, but then you got this guy calling cadence as you're about to go roll around in a bunch of gravel. I just loved it, man. So yeah, Airborne was cool, man.
I think one of the greatest things about some of the Army schools is it's like what you said, the punishment part. I want to see how far I could push this shit and how far I could go.
Yeah.
Because realistically, it's just building character and resilience, right?
Right.
You're like,
yeah, for sure.
These fuckers aren't going to beat me. And then they beat you. But the one thing the Army will teach you is that you will get broken, but they will build you back up. And if you don't, you just got to surround yourself with people that will build you back up. But it's a never-ending cycle. It's ebbs and flows, ups and downs. Where were you at during 9/11? Were you at your first duty station or were you still at jump school?
Yeah, first duty station. So get done with Airborne school, and then I go to the 82nd Airborne Division. And for 9/11, I was at the Humvee school. So I was learning how to be a high mobility Humvee driver. So, it was kind of shocking, man, obviously. So sitting around the Humvee, we're on a break, and then someone's like, hey, there was an attack. So, they cancel school, go home to your unit, and everyone had to meet at the barracks. So you're in the hangout area in the first floor of the barracks, and you're watching the news, and you're seeing airplanes flying to the buildings. It's like, well, we're going to war. And I'll never forget, I called my dad. I was like, hey, I'm going to be going to war. And he's like, yep, you're going to be going to war. So
how'd that make you feel? Because when you first joined, you had that mentality of nothing's going to happen. It's been 10 years. And now fast forward 2 years later, not even about a year and a half later, now you see these planes crashing into the building and that reality of war is coming. How'd you feel at that age and when that was going on?
I think I was cool with it. Like, I knew joining the Army, like, there's a possibility no matter what that I'm going to end up going somewhere. I didn't think it was going to be that quick, but I wasn't worried about it. But I mean, there's a little bit of backstory to that too, though, as far as I'd been in that unit for only a couple months. And after that happened, we were already on a rotation to go to NTC. So, the 82nd being the 82nd, like, all right, let's get ready. Right into NTC in October. And being in the engine shop, I don't remember the number of guys we had in there, but it's when I really realized, like, man, I don't know if I like some of these people. Leadership wise, honestly, like the individuals and my peers and the guys I was working with, I loved them, man. I met one of my really good friends, pulling duty at 2:00 in the morning in a 50 cal pit. Spend a couple of months prepping. We don't know exactly when the 82nd's going to leave, but dude, I had a squad leader when I was there for lack of better words, man, he was a douche, man. He was an E6, just a complete clown, never taught you nothing. So here I am, an engine mechanic. And dude, there was like 20 engine mechanics in our shop. And all we did was, we were the A&M company. So helicopter go into phase. They bring the engines over to you. You take the engine apart, you wash it, you blend some blades, you put it back together, and then it goes back in a helicopter, and you're just in a shop all day. And I hated it, dude. Like, I absolutely hated it. There's 20 dudes. You don't get to troubleshoot nothing. There's really no like, advancement. There was no pressure. So I was bored. And then that leader, man, he was just I don't know, man. He just wasn't a good leader. He was a good guy, like as a person, but I didn't respect him as a leader. So when the 82nd decided, hey, we're going to deploy, I'm sitting there thinking, man, dude, I'm going to go and I'm going to be with 20 dudes blending blades in the desert. And honestly, I wasn't thinking that, but that's just looking back. But they only took a certain number of guys, and I was supposed to go. Well, there was another guy that I was with that, dude, he threw a fit, man. He punched a locker because he wasn't getting to go, and I was, because I was still pretty new. And when John punched the locker, they came and said, hey, he really wants to deploy. Would you be willing to stay back? And I was like, yeah, like I will stay rear D, no problem. Because I didn't want to go be in Afghanistan with this leader that I didn't like him, man. And he didn't like me, to be honest. So
At that moment, is that when you started to realize, man, there has to be something bigger and better for me in this Army, and I like it, but doing this shit's really not cutting it right now?
honestly, dude, that that made my shift to, hey, look, I'm just going to do my time. I'm getting out. Right. So right off the bat, man, I hit the 82nd, and like, I don't want to dig on the 82nd. The Army's the Army, the conventional Army is the conventional Army. And there's a way that you have to institute and indoctrinate. And, you know, there's a chain of command, and it's just the way it was. Right. So, I mean, I did good, but, yeah, it just made me realize, all right, I'll just do my time and I'm getting out.
Yeah. Did you have that feeling like, man, there's more to life here, and this shit right here ain't cutting it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I was like, all right, I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna go back to building homes, man. So yeah.
You didn't go on that deployment. You stayed on rear D. What happened?
Actually, it was pretty cool. I think I went fishing every single day. There was no helicopters, so there was no mission. There was a CW3, and this dude ended up being the rear D commander. Bro, they put a CW3 as a rear D commander. You know how that went. So we did nothing but play board games, basketball, and I became friends with Chris. And I was like, hey, I'm gonna go fishing. He'd be like, I don't care, just don't get in trouble. So I spent, you know, the better half of while they were deployed, and, you know, no shame, but
How long was that deployment?
they did a year deployment.
Damn, so you're on rear D for an entire year.
Yeah, close to a whole year, man. Yeah, well, it was a whole year. Was it? I want to say my next PCS was before they got back. I think I PCS'd before they got back. So I think it was like 9 months of rear D.
Where'd you go next?
So then I went to the 160th from there. So I got my orders. My orders came down, and I was going to go to Germany. And I had met Angela. I met Angela a week after 9/11. And like, we got close. Obviously we're married now, but, I come down with orders in 2003 to go to Germany. And I asked Angela, I was like, hey, you want to go? And she's like, yeah. I was like, well, we got to get married. So we get married, and then I call the unit.
Joe, is that how you proposed?
Yeah, that's how I proposed. That was the initial proposal, man. I'm a heartless romantic.
I love it, bro. I just say that because I know you pretty well, and I can just see you doing that.
Oh yeah, dude. So it was, hey, you want to go? Let's go get married.
Yeah,
Now,
like, take it or leave it.
Yeah, we had a formal wedding, and I had a formal proposal to her on a hill, on a cliffside, on a beach.
Okay.
But we already knew, right? So, so anyway, I called the unit that I'm going to, like, hey, I'm inbound in a couple of months. What are we looking at? And he was like, cool. And I can't remember the exact date I was supposed to show up, but 2 months after I was showing up to Germany, it was a 15-month deployment. And I was like, I'm married, fresh married, and I'm going to take my wife to Germany and then be gone for 15 months. That ain't going to work. And my brother was already in the 160th. So I just called him up. I was like, hey, dude, I want to come to the unit. And he's like, all right, well, let me talk to some of the guys. And he did. And he's like, hey, just come out for the weekend and I'll introduce you to the guys and they'll see if you're good to go. So I go to 2nd Battalion and I meet Dave Moore, who was the shop NCO. And we hit it off. And he was like, well, you want to come and work here? And I was like, heck yeah, dude, I want to come work here. So for formality, I had to fill out a packet, but I was accepted before I even filled out a packet. And they dropped my orders. I was like, oof.
What'd your brother do in the Army?
He was a paramedic. So he was flight paramedic and he was a Night Stalker baby. So so my brother was in the Navy before he was in the Army for a year. He joined the Navy. He wiped the grease off engines. He did a year. They decommissioned his ship and like, you can either stay in or get out. He's like, I'm out. Then he joined the Army as a medic. And then while he was in school, Corey Lamro, who was the regimental senior medic, they drafted him right out of school to go to the 160th. And dude, my brother's smart. And my brother's a very unique person. Everybody loves my brother. It doesn't matter where he goes, what he's done in life. And he's a huge impact, right? Like I look up to my brother a lot and I always have. He could go anywhere and everyone loved him. He was a volunteer firefighter. He was on the Swiftwater rescue team when he was 19. He knew all the sheriffs. We'd be down at the river swimming, and my brother'd have one of his buddies with the helicopter show up and pick him up in the helicopter on the river, dude. So that was my brother, man. But yeah, he was a medic.
Let's backtrack. What was your most memorable moment at the 82nd as a mechanic? And what was your biggest takeaway from your first duty station?
So my dad died when I was in the 82nd Airborne. So when I was in the 82nd, 2002 was when my dad passed. So I don't know if it's the biggest takeaway, but it was the biggest effect on my life, honestly. When my dad passed, man, I had finally, what I felt like I had proven to him, like, hey, Dad, I'm a man. You can be proud of what I'm doing. And then when he passed, that was a hard pill to swallow, right? Because I'd finally felt like, hey, like I've proven to this guy that I wasn't a screw up my whole life. And I felt like I could let go of all that guilt that I carried. So when he passed, man, that was hard. I went straight to alcohol, like everyone in the military, right? Like when you ain't working, you're drinking. But what's weird is, honestly, my dad dying and getting sick. My dad getting sick saved my life, I think. Because even when I was in Phoenix before the military, I started going down a bad road again with using drugs. So when he got sick, I was like, all right, I'm gonna join the military. And then when he passed, so I used alcohol, and that was rough, man. Like I was in depression. I got arrested when I was in the 82nd, and luckily the cop that arrested me knew my platoon sergeant that I would go catfishing with. And somehow, I don't remember, but somehow he ended up calling Wayne, and they let me go. They held me because I got super drunk and got in a fight at South Beach or the beach, whatever the big bar is. And I got let go. But then it made me realize, like, all right, dude, you got to grow up. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know if there's a real big takeaway other than, it's just the Army. I don't really care for the 82nd Airborne Division. I'm bored. But once I knew I was going to the 160th and I was going to be in the unit with my brother, kind of a refocus, right? It's like, all right, cool. Now I get to go be part of something that I felt was bigger. But no discredit to the 82nd, right? Everyone's got their place and everyone's important in their own, field of expertise.
But guys like us, we're biased. Nothing wrong with the 82nd too. I love them guys. I want to have them on a show too, but you're a 160th, then 101st guy. It's just when you fall into Fort Campbell, man, you find a true passion and love for that place, and we just get it's crazy. We get indoctrinated to that place, right? And we're just loyal and committed to it. It's kind of crazy.
For sure. And, one, being young, right? I'm still young in the 82nd Airborne Division. And I didn't have any like major like Army experiences when I was in the 82nd, other than let's go clean an engine. Right. So, that meaningful, like when that correlation of memories and that pride that goes along with it. Right. So there wasn't a big takeaway from the 82nd. Now I'm proud that I was there and part of that lineage and the heritage of the 82nd Airborne, but nothing was like, all right, this is cool. But then when I got to the 160th, that shifted gears because, it's a special operations unit. So I'm like, all right, cool, man. I'm like 10% more Delta Force now. You know what I mean? I'm just kidding. But I got there and dude, that was cool, man. Like I bought into that whole gig real quick. One, because my brother's there and I looked up to my brother, right? And I didn't want to let my brother down when I was in the unit. But, Snowbirds was the holdover platoon while you're waiting to go to Green Platoon. And there was this dude, Gus Allman, and short black dude, loud. But like that dude motivated me more than anyone else. Cause when you're a snowbird and you're a holdover waiting to get into class, like it sucks, man. You're bored. You got your canteen on your hip and your stupid road guard vest. And all you do is run PT in the morning. But man, that dude would call cadence. And I said it earlier in Airborne school. I loved when someone could call cadence. And Gus Allman, bro, he'd take that group of snowbirds and he'd call cadence. Dude, it just pumped you up. And like, he was legit. Like I want to say Gus was a transmission guy, 68 Delta, whatever you call him. But like he bought in, man. Like he was all in. Night Stalker, black shirt, proud of the unit, and just his passion for the unit immediately resonated on me. Like I'm joining something that's legit. Regardless of what my job is, I was proud to be there. So that was cool, man. I was excited.
I want to ask, when your dad passed away, did you get that closure from him? And did he tell you that he was proud of you and the things that you were trying to accomplish with going to the military?
Yeah, he definitely told me how proud he was of me. But I didn't have that closure yet. So I don't want this to come out wrong or feel like I'm saying that one job's any better, but my goal was to be a pilot my whole life, right? So having that neighbor grow up being a pilot, like I'm in the Army now and I'm an engine mechanic. And so I had the closure from my dad as far as, hey, look, I'm proud of you. But I still didn't feel like I had proven to myself, right, what I'm going to be in life, because I still wanted to be a pilot. So I didn't have 100% closure with my dad, because I told him when I was going in the military, like, hey, I'm going to be a pilot someday. And he's like, all right, cool, whatever. My parents thought like, okay, this dude ain't going to make it. Cause when it came to being like in line with the law, I wasn't in line. So they thought I was going to fail. But anyway, to get back to your question.
You leave 82nd, show up to the 160th. You go through Green Platoon. Was this probably the hardest thing you've ever done so far in your military career?
Yeah, I think, the Green Platoon it was physically demanding. I'd say it was the first time I worried about failing something. So, I mean, you go do your PT test and like, if you fail your PT test, you're going to get kicked out of the Army. All right, whatever, dude. So I'll go pass my PT test. But it's the first time where I was like, all right, I don't want to fail. So, physically, I don't want to say it was easy, because it wasn't, but it wasn't hard, right? Like you run, you carry logs and all that stuff. But, I'd say it was the first demand on me, internally and externally, that I think I'd ever had.
What was the biggest difference between the 160th and the 82nd?
Right off the bat. So asset versus liability. I'll never forget being told okay, so I want to get this right. So when I was in Green Platoon, there's a little bit that goes to that. When I was in Green Platoon, my brother, like I was saying, he got drafted into the 160th out of AIT. And as soon as he got into the 160th, he never went to Green Platoon. They immediately shipped him off to the Philippines. And so I'm in Green Platoon and I got these black shirts that, like, oh, your brother hasn't been here yet. And like, so I show up and they already know, well, that's one. Well, they thought I was him at first. So like, oh, you've been in the unit for a year and now you're a green platoon. It's about time you showed up. I was like, no, that's my brother.
It's
And then he's
crazy.
like, oh, so you think you're going to be like your brother and get through green platoon without having to do nothing and all this stuff? And I'm like, whoa, dude, hold on a second. So anyway, this guy Paunch, he was a black shirt. He was an instructor, and he was also he was one of the shop NCOs. And I didn't know that at the time in green platoon, but as soon as I got out of green platoon, he shortly came back to being in the shop. But the big difference was the minute I stepped foot into that shop, I was getting taught. Like right off the bat, it's, you got to know how to troubleshoot aircraft. You got to know how to fix things when, like, time sensitive. So when you're on a launch crew, which, avionics, an engine mechanic, a TI, and a pilot, a maintenance test pilot, when they're going on mission, that crew is the launch crew. So when something breaks, those guys are there to fix it so that they can go. So right off the bat, it was, hey, you're either an asset or a liability. I'll never forget being told that. I was like, all right, cool. I don't want to be a liability. And then I started getting taught. Like I walked into that shop and they're asking me stuff about the engine. No, hey, welcome to the unit. Welcome to the shop. No, right off the bat, I'm getting hammered on how does the engine work. I was like, all right, cool. I like this.
Damn, that is a stark difference. It's important you say that because it is so pivotal, the impact that leaders have on your life, especially at a very influential age, young in the military. It either could go, you started 82nd, like, man, this shit's boring. I'm gonna get the hell out of here. Now, a year later, year and a half later, you're in a different unit, and you're starting to see the passion that other people have and the dedication they have to teaching you and becoming and making you a leader, making you a good mechanic. That's a huge, stark difference. I think that's one of the best things about the military, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think to take it even a little bit farther, it's, in the 82nd, there was no mission for me. I just had a job. Right. But then you join the 160th, and as you're going through green platoon, you're getting history, you're getting unit history, and you get that in the 82nd. But the way they correlate, history in the 82nd is you show up to formation and the platoon sergeant's got his sleeves rolled up and you don't. Everybody take your top off, do push-ups, and now roll your sleeves up. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, this is what I'm doing every day, is playing stupid games. And then I get to, and because there was no mission. So it's like, how can we ruin this baked potato for you in the Army? But then you go to the 160th and there's a mission, right? So immediately, like, you're important. Now, to kind of go back on what I was saying, not to say anything bad about engine mechanics, everyone's important. But I didn't feel like what I was doing. I wanted to be in combat. I wanted to be on the front line, in combat. Like, I wasn't like, hey, I want to go get shot at, but I wanted to be what I considered and felt like, oh, that's the important job. But I always wanted to be a pilot anyway, right? So I still felt insignificant, man, when it came to my job. So anyway, I just wanted to point out that, yes, good leaders matter, right? Like, having good leaders is ultimately, it's the most important thing, but having a mission and then being sold on that mission and buying in, it makes a difference in how you operate every day. I'll never forget, you might have me get into this later, but I was in Orkney and I'm on my way from Bagram to Orkney in the back of a helicopter. And I got a Delta Force dude sitting next to me. There's a bunch of Delta operators sitting next to me. I'm in a Gator, and they're going to go fly, and they're doing this mission. They're going to go drop me off at Orkney, and then they're going to go do this mission because, they're taking the launch crew. So I'll never forget, dude. Like, I finally felt like, oh, dude, this is so rad. I'm sitting in a Gator looking out the back ramp of a Chinook. And I look next to me, and there's this dude with a beard down to here. He's got NVGs on. He's got his gun. He's got his leg kicked up. And then, I look around, and there's like 5 operators on the aircraft. And I was like, I'm pretty badass. I was like, oh, I'm cool. And it's like, no, dude, I'm just an engine mechanic. But I loved it, dude. I loved being I felt important, man. It was awesome. So when you get that buy-in of like, what I'm doing is important, it's huge, man.
I think it also drives home the importance of the people that surround you. That is huge, man. I remember being at SEAR and just doing all the, the secret squirrel stuff with SEAR and meeting all these people. I'm like, damn, these are some fucking badass dudes, man. These are some bona fide killers, man. These dudes they're legit. And just they're quiet professionals. They're very humble, down to earth guys and shit. They take you in. And the greatest thing about them, they want to see you be successful just like them. And it is crazy, man, how that infectious winning attitude, it just spreads like a wildfire, man. And that's how everybody buys into places like the 160th and Special Forces, because you essentially you breed and feed your own. And obviously there's a bottom 10% everywhere, right? So we get that. There's an exception everywhere we go. But the norm, you got to maintain that high standard. At what point at the 160th did you decide, all right, it's time for me to put my flight packet. It's time for me to get serious about this. Let's keep this show rolling forward.
I dropped my packet in 2007. So, just for timeline purposes, I get to Fort Campbell for Green Platoon at the end of 2003.
What was your rank when you got to Green Platoon?
I want to say I was an E4. I was either an E3 or I think it was an E. Yeah, I was E4. Start Green Platoon in January 04. And then, my first deployment with 160th, and I'm not trying to get too off topic, but my first deployment was like 9 months later. That was cool. And that was when I was in the back of the aircraft with that operator. And I was like, all right, cool, but I want to go be a pilot. But anyway, I don't know. I actually, even when I was in the 160th, I was still on the edge of like, man, do I get out? Like, because I still didn't think I was going to get to be a pilot, right? Like with 7 moral waivers, and I'll even back up. So you got to do your security clearance. So I did my security clearance to get into regiment, and I didn't get my security clearance for almost a year. I had an interim security clearance because of all my moral waivers. And the investigator came to the 160th, and we sit down in the PC room, and he's doing this interview with me, and he's asking me about, so I had a minor under the influence of alcohol. I was 20 years old. It was like 2 weeks before I turned 21. I got a ticket for having alcohol. I actually got arrested for drunk in public. It was a different one. So, whatever, dude. I got drunk at the bar, talking crap. Cops come, like, all right, cool, let's go put you in the tank. Whatever. Didn't even show up on my records, and that's another story because my brother, that dude saved me. He knew the cop that arrested me, and the cop's like, you want me to give you your brother so he doesn't have to go to jail? My brother's like, I can't handle that, dude. Just take him to the tank. I'm in there licking the back of the window of the cop car, being an idiot. But anyway, so I'm doing this investigation with this guy, and he's asking me, well, what did you drive to Chico when you were going to go drink? And it's like, all right, I tell him. And then it's just one stupid question after another. Finally, I was like, look, man, I went to Chico. I got drunk. I got arrested. Never got booked. You're either going to give me my security clearance or you're not. But this interview's done. And I got up and I walked out because it was like an hour and a half. And it was just one stupid question after I'd had it. So with that being said, I still was like, okay, I can barely get a secret clearance, let alone am I going to make it into flight school, right? So I kind of like given up on the idea of being a pilot, and I'm going to do my time. And I was back and forth, like, am I going to, and of all things, I was like, man, maybe I could go be a sheriff's deputy. So what? But anyway, so I'm on the fence of like, what do I do? What do I do? And I called my mom. I was like, hey, I think I'm going to get out. And she's like, look, you've wanted to be a pilot your whole life. Just drop your packet. And if you make it, you make it. If you don't get picked up, you can spend the rest of your life saying, at least I tried. So, but if you don't drop your packet, you're going to regret it the rest of your life. And best advice ever. I was like, all right, cool. Because dude, the warrant officer packet was such a, like, why do I have to fill out all this crap?
It was a lot of bullshit.
Hurt to talk to people about why the process is the process, right? It's about, can you just follow the rules and the
Correct.
instructions? Or are you going to go through it, right? So I did it. I'm And look, I've never been good academically, man. Like I was a horrible student. If I needed an A paper to get that F to a D, I'll write you an A paper, right? But other than that, I'm riding the D minus part of life. Um, so
I want real quick, Joe. I want to give your mom a huge shout out. Once again, she changed the trajectory of your life with that one
for
phone
sure.
call.
Yep.
And when you see, I know you already love your mom, but for me, give her a hug, man, because if it wasn't for that phone call and the fact that your mom believed in you, she, no matter what, when you didn't even believe in yourself, your mom believed in you. Say, you know what, just give it a shot, and you did that. Because imagine if you didn't have that phone call, you'd have never became a pilot.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. And that's that true love, right? That's when you know you're loved.
That is true love, when people believe in you, even when you don't believe in you.
Exactly.
That, man, yeah, that's some good shit, man. Your mom is a good lady. I love that.
Yeah, she's
So,
solid.
and it's like you said, I've learned in life the process to getting access to places, they make it complicated to weed out the weak people.
Exactly.
It's the same thing with flight school, going to 160th, everything. They have to make this process hard because some people say they want it, right? But how much do they want it? And if they can't even get through the application process, your ass ain't gonna be able to deal with what we got for you when you come on this other side.
Right.
So how long did it take you after that phone call with your mom? How long did it take you to get everything ready for flight school?
Oh man, I was putting that packet together the next day. So I don't know, it probably took me a good couple of months to get it, right? Get it all done, get that flight physical scheduled, your resume. Honestly, that was the hardest part of the whole thing. Was I wasn't good at formatting anything on a computer, dude. So, you got to have 2 columns and it's all got to be spaced perfectly. And bro, that probably took me a month alone to get that stupid thing done. But anyway, yeah, I think a couple months later, I got my packet dropped, and let's see, that was 07. And like 07, I got my packet dropped, and I'm just waiting for that phone call. I'm waiting for the board to convene. And you know how that is. You can get online on AKO and you can look at the board results, and it'll tell you, board results don't come out until 14 June, whatever. And you're on there June 1st. Well, maybe they posted them early. Right?
I remember those days, man. Were you a first time go?
Nope, I wasn't a first time go. And that, bro, that was a shock. Because by that time I'm an E5, and I'm doing good things. I'm solid in my shop. I'm an assistant shop NCO, and just talking with the guys within the community and the pilots, like, hey, you're going to get picked up, man. Like, you joined the military, you got a lot of waivers. And that's that leadership, right? Like, that's surrounding yourself, like you were saying, around people that'll build you up. Even though I didn't believe in myself, and they might not have truly believed in me, but I got these MTPs and just, good leaders around me. Like, hey man, you've proven yourself. You're in a special operations unit. You've got a solid career already. You'll get picked up. So when that board came out and I didn't get picked up, it was like, oh man, my past is going to haunt me, dude. Like, so I was like, honestly, like I was kind of devastated, man. It's like, yep, this is it, man. I screwed up my whole life, and it's all right, but I ain't gonna be a pilot. And I don't know, I can't remember how long it is between boards, but
I think it's 60 days every board. Cause
something like that.
Like you, I didn't get selected in my first go around. I didn't get selected either. Now, same situation with you. If I would get selected as a helicopter pilot, I'm getting out the Army. I'm done with this shit, man. There's no more. Me personally, I didn't want to be enlisted anymore, because nothing against enlisted, it's just not the path I wanted to take. I felt like I had more to offer the Army. So November board came out, didn't make it, fully qualified, non-select. January was the next board. I was fully qualified, selected, and bam, continue there. One thing I want to ask you, with you being around those leaders in the 160th and seeing how they poured into you and they believed in you and mentored you, how did that help you become a great leader and carry that forward throughout the rest of your military career?
There's a lot of examples of just amazing first line leadership, command staff leadership. And then with my brother being in the unit, the guys that he worked with, they're already war heroes, man. So there's already, you're in the 160th, right? So there's war heroes everywhere. It was huge, man. Like, I'll never forget, I just gotten out of Green Platoon. And I'm not trying to get off topic, but it kind of matters, right? So I'm out of Green Platoon, and I don't know, maybe in the unit for 6 months on the line. And I'll never forget, man, I'm standing outside next to like all the ISUs and the connexes and stuff. And the Green Platoon guys, you know, they're on the compound doing Green Platoon stuff. And they go marching by me, and I'm kicked back. I got a broom, and I'm wearing my shorts and my t-shirt at work. And I'm just kicked back. And that dude, as far as like, I looked up to him as far as like being what I thought was like a badass, right? Like, the dude was strong, man. Like, you couldn't beat him. But anyway, I get done with Green Platoon, and that dude never messed with me, but I looked up to him, man. Like, for some reason, I always looked up to John as far as just being a badass. I knew he tried out for squadron at Bragg, or, you know, the guys up in Virginia. I knew he had tried out for him, but so like, it was cool. But anyway, I'm on the outside of the shop. I'm chilling. I'm kicking back, and he walks by with these Green Platoon guys, and he looks over at me and the guy I'm standing with. He's like, "Oh, you guys think you're really effing cool, don't you?" I was like, "What? I'm not in Green Platoon no more, dude." But anyway, it made me kind of look inward. Like, you know how sometimes it just takes one comment from somebody you look up to make you realize, I quit being a douche, right? And I wasn't trying to be cool, but whatever purpose he had for saying that to me, it changed me. It's like, all right, I'm not as cool as I think I am, because I must have had that I think I'm pretty cool look on my face when those guys walked by, and it humbled me a little bit. Not enough to humble me like I needed to be, but just enough to kind of motivate me. But there was him, our battalion commander, man, I've been trying to remember his name for the last week. That dude knew everybody's name. He's a battalion commander, 2nd Battalion's commander. He knew everybody's name in the battalion, and he knew all of their spouses' names. So I remember sitting in the engine shop one day, and he walks in, you know, attention, everyone snaps to attention at ease. And he walks up to me, and I'm working on an engine. He's like, "How's Angela doing, Joe?" I've never talked to this dude. And I look like, "She's doing good, sir." And do that, like, I would say that is probably one of the most memorable things out of a leader I've ever had happen to me. I've never talked to this man. I've seen him in formation. He walks into my shop, and he knows my name, and he knows my wife's name, and he asked how she's doing. He's like, "All right, dude, you want me to do anything? I'm doing it." Like, it just mattered, right? Like, it's like, that dude knew how to build a rapport and lead somebody. He could have told me go jump off a cliff. I'd have jumped off a cliff for him.
Damn.
For sure, dude.
And that's very pivotal with great leaders. They make you buy into the vision without making you buy into the vision.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And it's a gift. It's a gift that I've learned in the civilian sector. It's a gift that I've been very intentional about. It's all about winning people, man. That's what life is about. Winning people and building those relationships. And it's crazy, just little things like that. When I owned my gym, when my gym was open, I knew every single member's name. They'd walk in the door, they get a loud thunderous, "Hey, Joe, good morning." And it just made people feel seen and important. And once you do that, man, you got people bought in like crazy, man. That's huge. That's very good. That says a lot about who he was as a leader. So I think that's what separates places like 160th and these, you know, the Rangers and these other organizations. It's the type of leaders that they breed. And you only got two options in these organizations. You're either going to be a good leader or you got to go. That's it. There ain't no half stepping around here. It's either you're going to do it or your ass is out. And they keep it going. How many deployments did you have with the 160th?
I had 2. Only had 2. I was only there a couple of years. So my first deployment was Bagram Air Base, in 2004. And then Al Assad Air Base in 2005, 2006.
How long were both those deployments?
They're just 90-day deployments, man.
90-day deployments.
So quick ship, turn around, come back. Let's see, my first deployment in 04 to Bagram. I was an engine mechanic, right? So I was bored, man. Like I don't get me wrong. Like I enjoyed myself. I had a good time, good experiences. Like I was saying earlier, I got to sit in the back of the helicopter next to this dude that's like the baddest dude in the world. And that motivated me, right? So it was a good deployment, but it was boring, man. I thought I was cool because, when I would go from where we lived on the compound to the flight line, I got my shorts on and my t-shirt and my ball cap and, so we thought we were cool, but we weren't cool, man. We're stupid.
What was your most memorable moment with the 160th? Besides sitting on the back of a Chinook in a Gator with these badass operators next to you?
I'd say the most memorable moment I had, I was in Al Assad and my brother was in Baghdad. And like I was saying, everyone loves my brother, man. And he'd come visit me, dude. So like if there was any inkling that the flight crews could get something out of going from Baghdad to Al Assad, right? Which they're constantly back and forth, but my brother would be like, hey, dude, you guys want to go to Al Assad and so I can go see my brother? And be like, all right. And he'd fly out, bro, and wake me up at 1 o'clock in the morning and be like, hey, dude, let's go hang out. So we go down to, the talk, the JSOC talk and hang out. And I'd say that's probably one of the most memorable moments that just was cool. And then another one, I get to Al Assad and in Al Assad, Iraq, 2nd Battalion had Echo Company, and Echo Company was in Korea. They were a detachment in Korea because they took care of the Philippine mission. And I was in Delta Company. Well, Echo Company was in Afghanistan also with the Chinooks, and they needed somebody to go support Echo Company and Al Assad. So I was like, cool, dude, I'll go. And so they send me. So I'm not in Echo Company. I'm Delta Company, but I'm supporting them. So I get there and I relieve, because when you show up in country and regiment, it's not like, hey, you got 3 weeks of integration. Nope. You walk off the back of the aircraft, high five, boom, here you go. That's where your bed is. And that's where the shop is. Good luck. You're working tonight. And I high five Kevin and he gets on the airplane and leaves. And I'm like, I'm still kind of new, right? Like, I don't know, I wasn't new, but first time really being on my own, being the only guy. Sure enough, the next day or the next night, they wake me up at 1 o'clock in the morning, like, hey, aircraft is broke. Let's go fix it. And I'm thinking, all right, cool, whatever. I'm going to go out to the flight line and I'm going to fix a helicopter. I'm like, no, dude, go get your parts, get your flyaway kit. We're getting in the back of a Black Hawk and we're going to fly you out in the middle of nowhere and you're going to fix a helicopter. I'm like, all right, what's wrong with it? And it ended up being, filterable housings cracked. It's that's a PL, dude. Like you're landing. So anyway, I hadn't pre-checked all my gear yet. You know how it is, right? Like you got to have all your ducks in a row. You got to know where your stuff's at. It's got to be organized. Well, I didn't have time yet. I'm still like, I show up, high five at 2 o'clock in the morning. Good luck. I go to sleep, wake up the next morning. I'm getting to know everybody. What I should have been doing was I got to know my equipment. So 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning, they wake me up, go fix this helicopter. I walk out and Kevin had left this place in, I don't want to say shambles, but it wasn't organized. So I'm in like panic mode. I don't know where anything's at. I'm going through trying to find parts to fix this aircraft. So I'm like, oh, damn, this is how this one's going to start. So anyway, I find the parts. I get my TI who's with me, Matt, and he helped me out. He's like, all right, just calm down, dude. Like, we'll figure out where all this stuff's at. Cause they're going like, hey, let's go. There's an aircraft out in the middle of the desert that's got a bunch of people surrounding it. You got to go fix this thing. So anyway, that was memorable because they fly me out there. We land, I fix this helicopter, they're shining flashlights out in the middle of the desert. And then the trip back, they throw me in the back of the Black Hawk, and we're flying, and all of a sudden the aircraft starts doing this big hard pirouette turn. You know how the nose is down and they're just turning. I'm like, what the hell is going on, dude? I'm not hooked up on ICS or nothing. We land, and all of a sudden, dude, the doors open, and this big jacked dude with a big old beard and a ponytail is standing at the door, and they throw a POW in the back of the helicopter. Anyway, we get back to base. I go to sleep, and whatever it is, what it is. But I'd say those are the most memorable moments that I've had when I was in the 160th. There's some other things, but whatever. I think one of the funniest things I did though was when I was in Iraq. I knew all the medics, and the medics took care of me because it's my brother's people. And Kevin Zeitz was the medic, and I get there and I was like, Kevin, what's up? So we're hanging out, and he's like, hey, we got the Iridium phone.
Is that the Kevin Zeitz that becomes the first sergeant for Charlie Company eventually?
It is. Old Kevin, yep. So Kevin's like, hey, I got the Iridium in my room if you want to use it to make phone calls, because the phones in and out were kind of shoddy. But that Iridium this is the SATCOM phone, the SAT phone. And he's like, if you ever want to use it, just go in my room and grab the phone and you can make some phone calls. Bro, I racked up a $3,500 phone bill. Yeah, in like a month. So I'm on that, and Kevin's out on a mission or whatever. I go into the room and I pick up the phone, and I'm on the phone for an hour a night talking to Angela. He comes back, and I don't know if it's a month or a week or whatever. It was more than a week, but he comes back. He's like, hey, man, can't use the phone no more. I was like, why? What's up? He's like, well, they got the phone bill. It's like $3,500 or whatever the number was. It was just huge. He's like, so, yeah, you can't use the phone no more. I was like, oh, my bad, dude. So racking up bills, dude.
How was it with your brother having such a huge personality and everybody loving him in the 160th? How was that for you trying to not live in his shadow, but live up to his reputation?
So it was living in his shadow, dude, like for sure. And that's, that kind of goes back to why I felt kind of like, the job I was in wasn't enough, because, here's my brother, dude, my brother's got 2 DFCs. The dude's a hero, man. Like I'll try to talk him into coming on the podcast. My brother's a stud, dude. I was always in his shadow, man. So it was always like, hey, dude, what can I do to at least get, out of his shadow? And I actually, before I went and put in my packet for flight school, I went down to the aid station and I was like, hey man, I want to become a medic. Cause I went through EMT school when I was in the 82nd. Just because you could, right? So I went and became an EMT. And then I took that to the 160th. And when I was like, all right, am I getting in or staying out? I went down and I was like, hey, would you guys take me as a medic? And Corey was like, heck yeah, dude. You want to be a medic? I'll make you a medic. If you're anything like your brother. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it was hard, man. It was hard getting out of that shadow. And I'll tell you what, dude, I'm in WOC school, dude. And people know my brother. They say, Wonacott? Yeah. Doug Wonacott? You know Doug Wonacott? Yeah, I know Doug Wonacott.
That's my brother. Fucking Doug Wonacott. It's my brother.
Yeah. My brother, dude. And I'm proud of him, right? Like, it's cool. But my whole career, dude, all the way up until I left, man, they'd be like, Wonacott, you know a dude named Doug Wonacott? Yeah, I know Doug. Now,
is your brother still in the military?
No, he retired in 2020, same year I did.
Nice.
He did 20 years and got out.
Nice. What was your biggest takeaway from being in the 160th besides you're a little ant compared to your brother?
Right. My biggest takeaway was just I was proud to be in that organization. Truly. I carried that forward, and maybe not always healthy, right? Like, when I went to the 80s or the 101st, I was proud to have that patch on my shoulder. When I went through flight school, having that patch on my shoulder meant something to me, right? That was just being part of an organization that I bought in on. That's my biggest takeaway. And good leadership, man.
You get to flight school. How overwhelmed were you? How first off, how hard was WOCs?
It wasn't hard, man. Just not getting in trouble was the hardest part, dude. Honestly.
Trouble how? I would say the mouth issues again, or?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I got a story I can't tell, but I was doing some shenanigans, and I could have gotten in a lot of trouble, and I can't tell the story on here, but I remember just telling the people like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were in here when I was doing this. Please don't tell on me." Because I'd have gotten kicked out the Army, dude. But anyway, and I can tell you on sideline, you'll be like, "Oh yeah, you can't tell that story." But anyway, walks was easy, dude. It was like being right back at being in the 82nd. Well, let's play games. But what was cool about walks, bro, was I left in just tremendous shape. Like I was in good shape.
How many years were you in the Army at this time?
7 years.
7 years, E5. Now you become a W1.
Yep. October. I went to walk school in September of 2007.
Nice. Flight school, you show up.
Yeah. So get out of walk school. That's when the Army started doing SEER school at Rucker. Well, when I was in the regiment, you could go to any school you wanted, and I had it lined up. But I went to SEER school. I was going to go to SEER school at Bragg when I was in regiment. But the contract was getting figured out for SEER school for flight school at Rucker. So, and I didn't know at the time. They're like, "Hey, there's a SEER school in Washington at the Air Force SEER. Would you go to the Air Force SEER school?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll go to the Air Force SEER school, but can I go to the Army SEER school afterwards?" And they're like, "Yeah, no problem." So I went to Air Force SEER, and bro, that was fun, man. Like I loved SEER school, especially being an E5 in the Army. And you know what an E5 in the Army is? It ain't nothing. You don't get a nice room. You don't get anything extra. You're the first guy that gets all the crap. And so I show up to Air Force SEER school, and they're like, "Oh, Sergeant Wonacott, yes, you'll have your own room over here, and there's the bar downstairs. If you'd like a 6-pack, we'll deliver it." Like for real, like in the CQ, like you could get a 6-pack of beer and take it to your room. I was like, "Oh my gosh." So anyway, the whole reason talking about SEER school with that was, when you got done with walk school, you were waiting to go to Dunker and you were waiting to go to SEER. Well, I'd already had Dunker and I already had SEER. So I immediately went right into school. I maybe had a month and a half, 2-month holdover waiting to get into class. So like, look, when you want to talk about 100% dedicated to school, like I made it, right? Like when I found out I was going to flight school, I want to back up. When I got selected for flight school, I was in California on leave at my sister's graduation. And I was landscaping a memorial for my dad in our yard. My aunt was there. My brother was there. My close family is all there. And look, my aunt, my dad's sister is like that relationship is so tight. Like that's my dad, right? Like that's my connection to my dad is I have my aunt. And it was cool because God lined it up. So when I found out I got selected into flight school, I was out building this memorial for my father. And, I go in, I check the computer, and I made it, dude. And I broke down. I'll never forget. My family's out front at the memorial that I'm building just because we're hanging out. And I walked out, dude, and I just broke down. I walked up to my brother and I broke down. Like I made it. And the minute I got selected to flight school, Jason, like it all changed. That's like you asked me earlier if I had closure with my father. Now I had closure. My dad was proud of me, but I still wasn't proud of myself yet. When I got selected into flight school, dude, it was like, all right, now you've made it, dude. Because like growing up, man, like teachers, like I had teachers tell me you wouldn't even be a good garbage truck driver. And it's like, dude, like, well, you ain't a good teacher, so I don't care what you got to say. But anyway, those things hurt people. You don't know it. It backs you, dude.
It's crazy, guy. I brought up the story in Adam's episode how that how that coach in front of everybody said he thought I'd be in prison by now. And it's crazy that other people that I know that were in the Army, just like you, they're all reaching out to me now and saying, Jay, I'm glad you said that because I had a coach that did this to me in front of everybody. And same with you, I had these teachers, these adults, I understand the stresses of their jobs, but they have to understand the power of their words and how they hurt these young people. And luckily we either believed in ourselves or we had people that believed in us that we kept pushing. But if you tell the wrong person that, you could crush somebody, especially if you look up to them. The other thing I want to say is it is amazing how God works, because he didn't want you to get selected that first time because he wanted you to be in the presence of your dad and your family for that closure, man. That shit is powerful, bro. It gives me that tingling feeling just thinking about it now, how he set that all up to make sure that you got that closure, man. And I don't think there would have been a better time for you to get accepted to flight school, except that time right there with your family while you're building your dad's memorial. I mean, that turned out perfect, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wasn't spiritual back then either, so I didn't know it. Right. But my aunt being there when I got selected, it was like my dad being there, dude. You're right, dude. God's, just looking back, dude, like he had a reason for doing it the way he did. And that was that closure. So now it's game on, dude. Like, let's roll. I'm going to flight school, and I ain't like that's all I wanted, dude. Like I still kind of partied and drank because you're in the Army and that's what you do. But man, I was a straight up nerd. When as soon as I got out, before I even was out of walk school or even started walk school, bro, I already was buying flashcards, dude. I had flashcards to the, what was the helicopter you flew? The Creek or whatever. The TH-67, dude, I had the TH-67 flashcards. I'm already trying to figure out what I'm doing. And I didn't even know what the hell I'm doing, but I got the cards and I'm learning. So then I go to walk school. I get done with walk school. I got like 2 months. Dude, I was in the tech library every day, all day long, doing startup simulator, learning, there was a guy named Woody that, he was the old guy at the tech library. And Woody's been there 40 years, bro. Like, it was like, I'm going to suck it up, dude. What can you teach me? Well, where are you at in flight school? I haven't even started yet. And I remember him laughing at me like, all right, just slow down. I was like, no. I got to know everything. Dude, flight school, it wasn't overwhelming, because I was ready, right? I'm 28 years old. I'd already been in E5. I'd already been in a unit that I knew I wanted to go back to as a pilot. Cause I'd seen what the tier 1, the tip of the spear in my mind, right? Was. So I was dedicated, dude. So all I did was study and hunt with my neighbor. Made some really good friends. And dude, what was cool was my first IP in class was Mike Johnson, which was one of the original 160th pilots from 1980, 81 or whatever. So me and that dude right off the bat, like just clicked, like we hit it off, and he was so cool, man. Like, never disrespectful, cool, calm, collected, got a big old mustache, epitome of a warrant officer, rides a Harley. I just immediately was like, dude, I love this dude. Man, he was awesome.
At what point in flight school did you know you were getting Blackhawks?
You're halfway through flight school. You get done with initial entry rotary wing. So you do initial contact, you do tactics, and you do instruments. And then you do your OML selection for aircraft. So I don't know, I'm halfway through. I wanted either 58s or Blackhawks. And
did you know immediately you were going back to the 101st? We're going back to Kentucky?
No, I had no idea where I was going. Now, I was considering going flight school and putting in my packet to go to 160th. But I didn't have the confidence that that's the way I should have done it. And just talking to guys in the unit are like, hey, man, just go do some time, get some experience, and then put in your packet to come back. So anyway, I'm sure we'll get into that later. But yeah, I think you're 6 months into flight school when you find out what airframe you're going to get.
So at what point did you find out you're going to 101st?
Well, you get your orders that last, 6 weeks when you're in flight school. You get your orders, and I'm going to the 101st. So
How'd you
it's
feel?
cool.
How'd you feel about that?
Uh, I, I was happy because my brother was still in the unit at Campbell. I know all the guys, so it's like, all right, cool, dude. God's setting me up, and that's not what I thought then. But like, cool. I'm getting set up to be able to go back, be in the 101st, do a year, do a deployment or two, get the experience. I'm still close to all the guys that I used to work with, and then it'll be easy. I'll roll right back into my assessment to the unit.
What year frame did you get to not to the 160th, but to Fort Campbell?
So I got to Fort Campbell in May of 2009.
May 2009. Did you know as soon as you got there that you guys were going to deploy?
Yeah. Yep. We were already patched on the chart to go. They had just gotten back from their 08 deployment. I think they'd been back maybe a couple of months, and then I show up as a new guy, and it's, we're deploying next year.
How'd you feel being that new guy? W1, 101st, don't know shit about flying, and now did you go straight to the medevac or did you go somewhere else?
Straight to the med, dude. Bro, I was full of myself, right? I'm a pilot now. I'm like 10% cooler than everybody else. Not very humble. Yeah. So, but I showed up ready. Like, in flight school, they tell you, oh, you need to make sure that when you get to your unit, man, volunteer for all these additional duties and show the unit that you're dedicated. And I see an importance in that, but that's not the route I took.
Mm-hmm. What route did you take?
I took the route of, I want to be a PC as fast as I can get. All I wanted to do was fly, dude. So the whole idea of let me go be, the IMO, which is the guy who's in charge of computers, was like, I don't think so. I don't want to do that, because literally that's how it works out. I get there. One of the captains, she was cool, but she was super soft-hearted, soft-spoken gal. And I'm there maybe a week, and she comes up. I'm at a copier, and this John, I don't want to name drop a bunch of people because I don't know if they want me naming them, but John's been on. So John King's sitting there right next to me. And she comes up and she's like, hey, Mr. Wonacott and Mr. King, we got your additional duties. And I don't remember if she told John what his was going to be, but she's like, Mr. Wonacott, you're going to be the IMO. Dude, like, I'm still got my flight school backpack full of books that first week. And then, I got humbled, like, hey, idiot, why are you bringing all your books to work? Go study at home. Man, you look like a clown, because I'm lugging 50 pounds of books around just trying to know. But anyway, so she's telling me you're going to be the information management officer. And then she tells John, you're going to be the unit movement officer, load the aircraft, go to the rail yard and do all that stuff. Well, I had taken the Air Force's UMO course, and I don't know nothing about computers. And I look at her and I was like, well, hey, I don't know nothing about computers. What am I going to do? Well, you don't have to know anything about computers, but you're going to be the guy that when a computer breaks, you'll contact S6. I think it's S6, those computer people. You'll do all the tickets to get them to work on the computers. And I'm like, what? My job is to write out a ticket for fixing your computer? I was like, hey, I'm a unit movement officer. I did the Air Force school. I could do that. And John's like, yeah, I'm computer savvy. She's like, no, we've decided this is what it's going to be. And right off the bat, I was like, damn, conventional Army. Like, we're not even going to make sense of this.
We're not even going to try to make sense of this. What the flying fuck?
So you're not going to use me for my experience. You've just decided this guy's the computer guy. And I was like, oh, damn. But anyway, so, there's an importance of showing up and showing the unit that you're willing to do whatever it takes. But I'll be honest, man, that wasn't my outlook. My outlook was, I'm going to be the best pilot I can be. And I want to know as much as I can so that there's no doubt that I'm going to do my job as a pilot. And then any other duty you give me, like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it, but I could care less.
How fast you made PC?
And I made PC quick. Let's see. So we deployed. So I get there 09. We deploy March of 2010. And I was there. I was only in country maybe 3 or 4 months. and I'm getting selected for PC. I'm getting boarded. So I wasn't even getting boarded. You know how they do a pre-board, right? Like who's going to be the next guy on the next board that's going to be a PC. And I had maybe 300 hours, and it's already like, okay, Wonacott can, like, he's showing what it takes to be a PC. Let's board him on the next board. And I'll never forget. And during that board meeting, he was telling him, I was like, nope, Wonacott's not going to be a PC. He's still too young, and he hasn't been scared yet. Like he's not scared of the aircraft yet. And I truly wasn't. So that got delayed because of that. But then I made PC quick, man. But my PC check ride in country was like a month long because I was so young and had a lack of experience. I had to do 2 weeks with Adam at one of our IPs. I had to go fly missions with him for 2 weeks. I had to fly with Rick, the SP of the company, quite a few times. I had to fly with other people that were, PCs that so my PC check ride was long before like the official, if that makes sense. So I don't know. I think I had like 300, and by the time I made PC, I had 400 hours. I made PC with 400 hours.
You showed up to Afghanistan in 2012. You still W1 right now, W2?
2010.
2010. I'm sorry, 2010. You're W1 or W2?
I just made W2.
Just made W2.
Yep.
You're a pilot. How did you feel showing up as an aviator instead of an engine guy this time?
I was ready to roll, dude. So you know how most people are, like, I hadn't been in a true combat situation. Like I'd been on bases that had gotten rocketed and stuff, but I'd never tested my ability and my skills in a combat environment. So I had that initial, like, okay, am I going to be the kind of person that when I'm in a firefight or I'm in that situation, am I going to freeze up and not know what to do? Or am I just going to be good with it and I'm going to push on? And so I was worried, that first couple weeks when you're going through your local area orientation with we were replacing the 82nd. So I was nervous, man. And it's an important mission, right? So like, you got to be on it. So I was like, on the outside, you couldn't tell I was nervous, but on the inside, man, it was like, okay, like I was terrified. Like I got to do this job and I got to do it right. And I got to make sure I'm going to be good. So yeah, that was showing up. I was excited. But I was nervous.
Where'd they keep you in Kandahar? Did you go to one of the outlying FOBs or you stayed on in Kandahar?
So I was initially supposed to be going to TK with 1st Platoon. But I didn't get along with my, with the captain that I was with. We butted heads like right off the bat. And, I think that goes both ways as far as who's at fault. As a leader and that person at his time being a captain, I didn't really respect him. And then the flip side to that was I came into the unit hard charging, dude. So like I had a mission. I wanted to be a PC, and I was kind of an a-hole, to be honest. And I think he saw me as a threat. So we butted heads right off the bat. And dude, I'll never forget, man, when we're getting ready to deploy, it's so bad between he and I'm already trying to get into a different platoon. So before we even get to Afghanistan, dude, we're on green ramp at Campbell getting ready to go. And this dude walks up to me. I'm hanging out with the guys. He walks up to me and he's like, hey man, you got your PT belt? I just left my family an hour. And he walks up and says, you got your PT belt? What do you mean, do I have my PT belt? Yeah, I got my PT belt. Oh, I'm just making sure you got what you're supposed to have. I'm getting ready to deploy, dude. And you're asking me if I got my stupid PT belt an hour after I left my wife? Like, dude, get out of my face, man. I hated this dude, man. And I don't feel that way anymore, but
yeah,
as a leader. Yeah. And then you get to Manus, you do your time in Manus where you do whatever integration prepping to get into country, that little 3 or 4 days you spend there. And I'm hanging out with and they're my seniors, right? They're the CW3s and CW4s that I look up to. And this guy comes up to me and, he walks up, he's like, hey man, hey, Mr. Wonacott, do you have your ballistic plates? Right in front of the guys. And I'm like, Yes, sir. I got my ballistic plates. And then he looks at James. He's like, I don't need to ask the rest of you. I know you guys got what you got. And it's like, and I'm like, all right, dude, I don't like you. So then we get in to Kandahar at night. That was culture shock, dude, just because we get off the plane and we get on the bus and we're going to RSOI. And I see the first building I see there that sticks out was TGI Fridays. I was like, we got a TGI Fridays. What am I getting into? I'm in this platoon. We know we're going to go to TK before we even get into country, right? So you already know where you're going. Well, we're replacing the 82nd Airborne Division, and the post command sergeant major that was in TK was my friend. He was from the 82nd. We would catfish together. Wayne was there, and I'm already talking to Wayne on the phone because I found out there. I was like, hey, dude, I'm inbound, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, cool, we'll get to catch up. So I tell the captain, I was like, hey, look, I know the guys. I can hook us up to make sure we're taken care of as soon as we get there. And he didn't want nothing to do with that. That was that, like, I was a threat to him. So it was like, well, you know, so we're at the RSOI in Kandahar, and we're getting ready. Like, we got a couple days before we push out to go to TK. And I'm supposed to be that Advon that goes up, the first flight crew that goes up there. And he tells me, he's like, hey, Mr. Wonacott, I just want to let you know that I'm going to keep you back here at Kandahar for the next 2 weeks. I really need your expertise back here for the next 2 weeks to support us to make sure that everything gets from here to TK while we go forward.
What was your most memorable moment in Kandahar? It's being your first deployment as an aviator. You make PC there. What's your most memorable moment?
Okay, well, I got a lot of good moments there, and a lot of bad ones, but just right off the bat, the most memorable moment I had was I crashed a helicopter there, dude.
Let's hear about that.
All right, look, I told you I made PC at 400 hours, right? So because I was so young and such a short time guy, I wasn't allowed to be a PC with just a regular PI. I had to fly with other PCs. And it started off with, okay, you'll be a PC during training missions, and we'll do that for a couple weeks, and then you'll go be a PC with other PCs in combat. So I was like, all right, whatever. And my timeline might be a little different, but it was more than a couple weeks. But anyway, I'm still brand new, and I'll never forget, dude. You know Rick, our SP, and I don't want to name drop his last name because I don't know if he wants me to use his name, but Rick, I looked up to Rick, man. I just make PC, and this is the attitude I had. Jason, you know Jason, he was a 160th guy that ended up in 6th Battalion. He was the safety guy. But anyway, this builds up to the crash. This was my mentality, right? Like, I'm the man, dude. I made PC quick. I made it before all my peers, and I did it without having all these BS additional duties. So I've proven myself. So, no, not exactly humble. Well, you know how you do an AMC crew brief with the chase guys? I'm sitting there in the common area of Dust Off's headquarters, and Jason comes in as the chase PC. He's like, hey, you want to do a AMC brief? I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I just start rattling it off, dude. Like, all right, now I had it memorized, right? But that ain't how the Army rolls, dude. Like, you get your checklist out and you go line by line and you discuss everything. Well, humbling moment, Rick just grabs the checklist and he hands it to me. And I felt so stupid, dude. Like, and here's a W4 that was a 160th guy. So I'm trying to impress him that I've memorized all this crap. I just made myself look like a complete fool because I was confident, man. Like, I was so confident. All right, so fast forward to my crash. I'm on a training flight. I didn't do the proper, I didn't know that the guy I was flying with hadn't flown in 45 days. Now, I knew him. He was a captain. He hadn't flown for 45 days. And prior, that flight that he had before that was with an IP. And anyway, regardless of his situation, I didn't prepare myself thoroughly as the PC to know who my crew was and know how long it had been since they'd flown, just the experience level, right? I was complacent, man. I was full of myself.
Quick
So anyway,
question.
what's that?
Why didn't the MBO catch that? The mission briefing officer.
You know, I know who it was, and he's a good guy. I don't know how they missed that, dude. I think
I'd
it
have
was,
been on that shit like flies on Dookie.
yeah. I don't know, and I'm not trying to hype myself up. I don't know if it's just because I was so confident,
Mm-hmm.
and guys were confident in me, right? So
Yeah.
I think I made it at a pretty early level. I think I'd done everything right up to that point. I think it was just kind of an assumption that he's going to do this right.
Okay.
And, so either way that got missed, but, anyway, so our aircraft are on the other side of the flight line. So we go to the other side of the flight line, get in the aircraft, and we're just going to go do a training flight out at Hilo, Texas Hilo. And have you been to Kandahar?
No, I've never been to Kandahar.
Texas Hilo was one of the training areas right outside of the base, and it was a big mountain. But anyway, so we're going to go do a training flight there. Super easy, right? Pick up, go fly over there, do some training, and then come back. Well, when we take off a Mustang ramp, we had some equipment that we needed to drop off back at headquarters. So it was going to be like, okay, we're going to reposition from Mustang, fly across the runway, and we're going to drop off the equipment, and then, we'll go train. We take off, and you know how you get used to a certain pattern of how things go. So it's like, okay, we're going to take off. They're going to tell me downwind, turn base, call my base, and we'll go land. Well, right off the bat, we take off. Tower tells us, all right, go ahead and call base. And we're getting ready to call base. He said, he tells us, like, dust off, whatever, extend your downwind for departing traffic. So we're already kind of hauling butt because I'm expecting my base, and he's on the controls, and we get that. So that's that first step of what's the normal like traffic pattern. It gets changed just enough. And then he says, hey, immediate base turn, expedite across the runway, traffic's holding for you. So what do? You nose it over, you pull power. On base, you're starting to slow down, descend that 200 feet, whatever. No, we're hauling butt. So my co-pilot, he pulls power and he gets across the runway, and we're getting ready to turn on the taxiway, Fox Taxiway or whatever it was. And we've got like 300 meters from turning on to the taxiway in flight to where we got to stop to get on the mic ramp where our aircraft are for dropping stuff off. And as we're getting ready to turn, dude, he's doing like 120. Right? So I tell him, I was like, hey, slow down. And he slows down to 100 knots, makes the turn. Now we got a tailwind, right? So, but the runway at Kandahar is 2 miles long. So words have meaning. And this, like I learned more in logging a 0.1 on a helicopter than I've learned in my entire life. When you say something to somebody, they're going to do it. So anyway, we turn, and I see Mike come, and I look down, we're doing 100 knots, we're at 100 feet. I was like, hey man, you're going to miss Mike ramp. He didn't say nothing. And we're just paralleling Mike ramp. And I was like, hey dude, you going to stop the effing helicopter? And he's like, I was looking at Pedro. And dude, he dumped the power, aft cyclic, pulled that power right back in. And I yell, I have the flight controls. Now this dude's huge, and he's a good guy, man. Don't get me wrong. Like, he hadn't flown. He'd been working in the TOC for like the last 90 days and had 2 flights, and they put him in with me, an overconfident, cocky young guy. Didn't do a good aircrew brief. Didn't know who I'm flying with. And I said it, you're going to stop the effing helicopter? Bro, he stopped the effing helicopter. So when we hit the ground, like we went from 100 miles an hour, 100 knots to falling at 100 meters. That's how quick that aircraft stopped, dude. 27 degrees nose up. We drop, and when I said I have the flight controls, and look, dude, like my memory of the event, there could be some discrepancies from his point of view, but I tried pushing forward on the cyclic. Now this dude's 6'4", 280 pounds. He's a monster of a man. I tried pushing forward on the cyclic, and it ain't moving. I just remember thinking, oh crap. We hit the ground, smack the ground, we spin out. And I was in an accident when I was younger, or I was in an accident, but I had a dream when I was younger that I burned alive in a car crash. Like, and that's like PTSD from a dream. So I'd been in a few accidents since then. The first thing that's always come to my mind is, am I on fire? Well, that's what happened in that crash, dude. We hit the ground, boom, we hit. First thing that runs through my mind, dude, I rang my bell. I messed my neck up, my back up. We hit at 3,000 feet per minute. That's what the data recorder had us hitting at. So when we hit 27 degrees nose up, slam the ground, the belly of the aircraft, we stroked the struts, dude, full out. Hit the ground, 3,000 feet per minute. We spun out. First thing that goes.
Did the belly hit the pavement?
Yep. Bro, we hit so hard, the belly hit. Well, really, so I'm sitting left front, the left front underneath me, and the nose of the aircraft hit. Anyway, the first thing comes to mind is, are we on fire? Dude, but my brain is rum, dude. He goes into fight or flight, does what he's doing. He's grabbing onto me, dude. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, dude, shut the F up. I gotta make a radio call. I think we're on fire. Like, I gotta do emergency engine shutdown, all this crap. And bro, we crashed right in front of headquarters, dude. Right in front of headquarters, dude. And then just like 300 meters down the ramp is the 160th.
Damn.
And it's not one of those days where like nobody's out on the flight line. I literally crashed in front of headquarters when every single aviator and shadow battalion is out there watching. But I'll never forget, dude, Audrey Ramos. So Danny was in the back with me, her husband at the time, and Penaloza was with me. And like I said, I went into that like kind of fight or flight, dude. My back hurt, my neck hurt, but I was like, all right, dude, we're on fire. Or I asked, are we on fire? I think I did. But anyway, Audrey comes running into the aircraft, and I'm just getting ready to do an emergency engine shutdown. And I remember thinking, stop, because the rotors are going to droop without the droop stops in. And it was cool. It was actually a good thing she did, because that made me kind of stop. I called tower, hey, crash rescue, whatever. But yeah, dude, I'll never forget, man. The aircraft shuts down, and you remember Hugler. Hugler was in the back of the aircraft, and I didn't realize it. The APU's still running, and he finally was like, hey, Mr. Wonacott. Yeah, he's like, you can shut the APU off now. I was like, oh, okay. Because, you know, dude, you're in fight or flight. And anyway, so I took my helmet off and I just slammed it against the cockpit. Bro, I'd been a PC like maybe 15, 20 hours.
Damn.
And I crashed the helicopter, dude. And I remember thinking, damn, I'm fired. I'm so fired. I get out of the aircraft. First thing I do, bro, I light up smoking a cigarette right at the aircraft. Fire rescue's like, hey, you can't smoke here.
How was everyone else though? Did they embrace you, or did people have that attitude? This young aviator balled up an aircraft. How was the climate for you afterwards?
So within the company, everybody was cool, man. Our MTP, he told me, he's like, look, dude, it's all good, man. He's like, either you've crashed a helicopter or you're going to.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, so it's all good. Don't worry. Everyone was supportive, man.
Damn.
Now, some of my buddies that were in the assault unit, you know, you're going to get made fun of, bro.
Oh, you're going to get made fun of. It's
happening.
Yeah, it's happening.
But I wasn't worried about it, right? Like, there was an embarrassment to it, but dude, like, I learned.
Yeah.
I learned that day, like, okay, when you tell someone to do something as the PC, you don't know where their head's at. You got to choose your words carefully.
And I know that had to set you up for the 2012 deployment that we'll talk about shortly.
Mm-hmm.
Mission-wise, what was your most memorable moment?
So I was part of the recovery crew for Jonah McClellan's crash. Jonah was, you know, he was med chase. He was with the Lancers, and I was in Ramrod with Jonah quite a few times and kind of got pretty close to him, but like we weren't best friends or nothing. But you know how it is, dude. Like I bought in. Like, so if you're an American and you get hurt, man, like I'm gonna cry for you, dude. Like you're a brother in arms. And I wasn't best friends with Jonah, but dude just had a new baby, and they moved me from Kandahar up to Fob Wolverine for a month to replace Ashley. And I'll never forget, dude. We took off at like 4:00 in the morning. We got Alpha. Didn't know what it was at first. We're like 5 minutes into the flight and they're like, return to base and get extraction equipment. So we're med on med chase. And at the time it hadn't registered what was going on. I'm just like mission focused. We're going to go radio calls, frequencies, getting set up and like return to base, get extraction equipment for the guys on the ground. Cause it's a fallen angel, which is an aircraft down. Well, Jonah was on the DET 101, which, Detachment 101 was the guys supporting the 160th because there were so many missions. They were supporting those guys and they had all the Navy SEALs on board. And I'll never forget, man, we're Chalk 2, Chalk 1 goes and, it's up in the mountainous terrain and it's still dark. You got an Apache above head and, Chalk 1 goes in and land and they immediately get on the horn. Hey, you need to land now. Cause I don't remember if we knew how many people were in the aircraft, but it was 13 people, dude. So we put it down and I'll never forget that sight, dude. The aircraft, the front part of the helicopter is on our side of the ridge where we landed. And the rest of the aircraft was on the other side. So the cockpit and part of the fuselage is on our side. And I could see Jonah in the aircraft, but I didn't know it was him at the time, right? It's just a helicopter, whatever. You're mission focused, dude. And I'll never forget Chalk 1's medics running around, dude, Drew. And you could just see it. It was pretty wild, man. You got bodies laying everywhere. He's doing an assessment. But you're mission focused, right? So it's like, okay, radio calls, update the talk. You're talking to Chalk 1, you're talking to the guys above. So didn't have a whole lot of time to process. Didn't know they were 101st guys. And then we get back, we drop off some guys at the roll 2 or whatever it was. But one of the most memorable things out of that was, one of the Navy guys who survived, he got thrown out of the aircraft, or I'm assuming he did. And I'll never forget watching this dude walk over the hill. And you could tell the dude was just like, where am I at? And they walk and put him on the back of the aircraft with us. And we had some KIA in the aircraft. You know how it is, man. You try to separate the heroes from the guys that are getting worked on. And I remember turning around and looking, the dude's just straight shell shocked. He's looking down. And I remember it kind of hit me. I was like, oh man, I'm not even thinking about the air crew of these guys that I might know, but, I'll never forget the look on that dude's face, just looking down at his buddy's dead. That's the most, I've held on to that the rest of my life because 1, if you were an American, dude, I cared, right? But 2, I knew Jonah and, but what kind of hurt from all that was I never got closure because you know how it is, you're mad, dude. You get done at Fob Wolverine or you're on to the next mission. Every day is a new mission. So I didn't get to go to the ramp ceremony. And for some reason, I wanted to be at his ramp ceremony, but I didn't get to. And then that deployment just kept going. So, you suppress it, move on. Well, fast forward all the way up to last year, I never talked to nobody about that except my counselor. And, the church I'm in, I've got some of the closest people I've ever been to, and my small group. And I shared that story. I shared that story in front of them, that I'd held on to for a long time. And man, it was awesome because dude, I cried, I let it all out. And, huge part of my recovery, dude, was.
So Joe, you respond to this fallen angel, and me being an aviator, that's something tough to deal with. You get on site, you process all this with your church. What was your biggest takeaway from that 2010 deployment?
I think definitely, because of the crash, my accident, the incident I was in as far as crashing the aircraft, and then just, the aircraft, the fallen angel, I'm not invincible. I'd say that was probably the biggest takeaway was, I'm definitely not invincible and I needed some humbling. Yeah.
Quick question. Do you think, I know he didn't mean it from a bad place, but do you think that's what James was talking about when he said he hasn't been scared yet? Damn.
Yeah, that deployment one, it was awesome. I loved that deployment because like it was an adrenaline rush all the time. It was busy. I think we did like 3,000 medevac missions that year. Like it was legit. But I truly wasn't really afraid of anything. Like, I wasn't like, oh, like I'm not afraid to get shot at. Like, okay, yeah, like there's a few times we landed and it's real and you're hiding behind that little wing that you got as an armored panel. Because yeah, you're scared, but, um, definitely realized I wasn't invincible and that I was definitely more my confidence. You remember them teaching you don't ever outfly the capabilities of the aircraft?
Correct.
Well, my confidence outflew the capabilities of just myself, right? Like I let my confidence get in the way.
So you get back. How are you doing mentally? Because you said you weren't able to decompress, talk about, just go, go, go. Now you're home, slowing down. You already know you're getting deployed again, 2012 and 13. So how are you feeling?
Um, Honestly, I felt pretty good, man. I think I was riding the high of flying in combat so much, and even when you got home, you had like a month off, but then you're back into getting ready to go to JRTC and NTC. So, um, I felt good, man. Honestly, like there was some stuff that had happened that I had recognized. Oh, okay, like emotionally, this is going to hit me down the road, but I was still focused on, hey, I'm a pilot, and I'm not going to worry about that stuff right now.
Yeah. How's the family holding up?
So at the time, it was just me and Angela. Didn't have any kids yet. So everything's good. Angela stayed busy at work and um, being an amazing wife. So life was good, dude. Um, During that time frame back, Angela got pregnant, and then we had my daughter Taylor in December of 2011. And 4 months later, we're getting ready to ship on out again. So it was a little different that time, though.
So we show up, we get to Afghanistan 2012 and 13. Now you're in Bagram. So what are your thoughts now from the difference between Kandahar and Bagram?
Well, the first was when I got off the aircraft at Bagram, I didn't recognize it because, it'd been 8, 9 years since I'd been there. And when I was there the first time, you still had the iron tarmac or whatever, just all the steel grates. And there was no other side of the airfield. The other side of the airfield where the hangar, right? That's the original side of the airfield. The other side of the airfield, there wasn't nothing there except the burn pit. So when I stepped off, I was like, what is this monster of a base? So that was kind of a shock. But
I thought the same thing, Joe, and I was there in the all of 2008 deployment. From 2008 to 12, when I got off that plane, I said, holy shit, what happened here? It was crazy.
it was completely different, dude. So, um, I mean, big difference between Bagram and Kandahar is, Kandahar had the poop pond. Bagram didn't. So I was happy about that because, dude, truly, we lived like 300 meters from the poop pond, man. And, it's probably the worst experience of my life. I gagged twice a day, dude. I'd puke at the stop sign walking past it. But Bagram was, I knew I was going to JBAD. So, different mission. So I don't know. I mean, just the shock of how big it had gotten, man, was really the difference. And then we spent a week there or whatever, and then you're out to JBAD.
When you get to JBAD, how are you feeling?
I'm ready, dude. I'm a PC now. Like I'm an established PC, and I was ready to roll. I was excited to fly in the mountains. So, in Kandahar, you're down in the, in the bottoms and the valleys, and you get into the mountains a little bit, but you're flying down in the agriculture, and Jalalabad, dude. Now it's okay. There's a possibility of flying into power limited situations, and possibly you're going to go fly at an altitude where you're going to droop the rotors, and you remember getting the videos of the aircraft that crashed going up there's a valley, an Apache crash because they ran out of power. So that's all in my head, right? Like hats and all the different training. It's like, all right, cool, different beast. It's going to be slower. It's going to be more technical. And I knew like at that time frame, that area of Afghanistan wasn't as, like, they've kind of slowed down the Taliban in that area. So I was excited for the technical aspect of being in the mountains.
What was your most memorable moment in JBAD, that 2012-13 deployment?
I'd say the most memorable was probably one of the last missions we did. Was, okay, so you had the farthest northern base in the Kunar was it called Bostic? Was Bostic the farthest north where you could get fuel? Because you go up the Kunar, and then you had, was it Abad? They had a little roll to it, Abad, and then you had the patch. Yeah. So one of the last missions we had was an A&A guy had shot himself in the shoulder, and it was in the valleys that were way up past Bostic. So we had to do, and it was a trip because we had A-10 support because there was no troops above Bostic anymore. They were doing their withdrawal out of that province. And so there's no support up in the mountains. So we got A-10 air support. We got 2 Apaches for our gunship. And then we got 2 Blackhawks of Pathfinders. And then you got the med. All to go pick up a dude shot himself in the shoulder. So you get all the way to Bostic, we get refuel, and we do an AMC brief because we meet the Apaches en route. And at that time, and it there's always kind of that dilemma of who's the AMC, right? Who's the air mission commander on scene? And growing up, that 2010 deployment, they might say that certain people were the AMC or the AMC, that, they're the AMC, but our idea was we're the med and our mission is to save this dude. So what we say is what goes. And the only reason we say, well, we're going to do is because we're talking to the guys on the ground who need our help. So they're the ones in charge. They've asked us to be here. I don't care if you got to shoot your guns or not. I'm in charge. Well, anyway, so we're doing this AMC brief, and the Apaches were like, well, hey, you guys will be Chalk 6 or Chalk 5, whatever it was. And we're going to be the AMC. And I was like, whatever, dude, I don't care. Let's just go pick this dude up and let's come back. So I do a quick run over of this is the route we're going to take because of our capabilities of power and stuff like that. And the Apaches are like, all right, cool. We'll take this valley, whatever. So we take off. We're flying. They didn't have, they had, what was the thing that you'd wear on your knee? The map, the Blue Force tracker, the BFT, the knee board. Anyway, that thing.
Yeah.
Right?
I can't remember the name of it.
We had moving map in the aircraft, so we didn't have to use that. It was in there to send text messages if we want, but whatever. I've got my route on my map. And as we're flying, we only had, the mission was set up too. We only had 10 minutes on the ground because of fuel. And we weren't sure if we were going to have to do a hoist out of there or not. So anyway, it's calculated. We ain't got much time. So we take off. These dudes turn and go up the wrong valley. They go a valley early. And immediately I'm like, hey, dude, we're going up the wrong valley. Negative. We can get over to where we're going from here. And I'm already like, dude, what the hell are you doing? We've got a planned route, and you're going to go ahead and change it en route and not even ask. And so they're like, no, we can make it over the mountain. I'm like, cool. So I'm flying with Fez. I love Fez.
Real quick, Joe, just so people know, this is how it's called the compounding effect.
Yep.
This is how things start compounding, and then shit hits the fan before we're aware of it, but other people aren't situationally aware of what's going on, right?
Yep.
So, as you mentioned, you say something about changing, right? Oh, it's not a big deal. Wait a minute. You're talking to a whole nother aircraft with different capabilities, man. We need to discuss this before we just start changing things, because I'm the guy who has to land this thing or do the hoist, or you're up there flying fat, dumb, and happy. I'm these changes matter. So I just want people to understand what you're talking about. What they think, oh, he just changed route. What's the big deal? No, it's a cascading effect. When we start changing things, this is where things could start going wrong for us. And it just piles up after that.
Oh, for sure. So, yeah, so I'm flying with Fez, and I don't think we had another med bird because we had all the support. So you remember, we were flying med on med, but I think we might have, and I just don't remember, Jason, but, we're going up this wrong valley, and I was like, hey, wrong valley. No, negative, we got it. And I'm like, Fez, you got the flight controls. So we're flying up this valley, and I'll never forget that video they showed us in getting into country of that Apache, settling with power and balling it up all the way up in this spur or in this draw because they ran out of power. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, dude, we're next. So they keep going, and they're like, negative, we can make it over. So I get on my moving map, and I'm scrolling this valley like, okay, we'll see if we're going to make it. Dude, the pass was at like 15,200 feet. I'm like, dude, you're an Apache, bro. Like, you can barely operate. And then on top of it, we ain't allowed to be up here. Like, we ain't making it over this. So I call him. I was like, hey, the pass is 15,200 or whatever. We ain't making it. Negative, we're good. I was like, all right, Roger, we're going to be hanging here. We're going to loiter. I'm waiting for you guys to come back. So I tell Fez, I was like, hey, just enter an orbit and let's keep rolling. We're at like, I don't know, we're over 13,000 feet. So I'm already starting to think, okay, we've got time limits for our oxygen. I'm looking at my fuel like, okay, they're already burning my fuel that I don't have. And then that's when I realized, and maybe he didn't, but this is how I process it. Fez started slowing down real slow. We're at like 13,500 feet. So I'm thinking, okay, we can't get below effective translational lift. Otherwise, we don't have hover capability up here. So he starts slowing down, and I look over, he's sweating. Right. And I'm like, oh, I think he's hypoxic. And look, I might have been wrong, but either way, so I tell him like, hey, you need to speed up. And he's not answering. Speed up. Anyway, like 30 seconds later, Chalk 1's like, yeah, Roger, Chalk 1, turning around. Like, yeah, that's right, dipshit. Let's go ahead and turn around and get this finished. So they come out, and then we go up and pick this dude up. And I'll never forget going in and landing. I felt so bad. I didn't feel bad at the time, but I do now. Now, these people, they're tribes, man, and they are disconnected from everything in the world except their little part of Afghanistan. And I roll in, and I come in and land. And when I landed, I blew over part of their house. And I remember chickens going flying. And I remember, like, inside, you process things a little different. I kind of laughed. But I felt bad, man. It's like, dang, dude, like, these people ain't got nothing against us. And if they do, whatever, I'm not going to take it out on them. But I didn't mean to blow their house over. But we picked this dude up, and dude, that dude's shoulder stank so bad, dude. And we RTB, man. We get back, barely got enough fuel at Bostic. I just called, and I was like, hey, I'm leaving y'all behind. I'm going to get max endurance or whatever it was. I'm going to get as far as I can on my fuel. I'm popping up over the mountains, and I'm going Bostic. I'm getting fuel. Got that fuel, and then we took him to ABAD. And I just remember telling the Apache guys, like, you know what, dude, when someone tells you you're wrong, you need to listen. That was a trip. That was the most memorable experience I had there. But there were some other good ones too, man.
Looking back, the difference between first platoon on your first deployment and being in fourth platoon on your second deployment, what was the biggest difference with that?
Man, like, I don't know, just different animal, right? So the op tempo in 2010 was the surge. So you are busy. Like, I don't even think guys had a time to not be a good leader, right? You were just busy. So 2012 and 4th Platoon and JBAD, we were slow, dude. Well, you remember, like, you kept asking me, hey, will you stop doing dust landings because you're wearing all the crap off the front of the blades? Just, you know what I'm saying? So, but our, Captain B was a good dude, man. I liked being there with him, but I don't know, man. Just the op tempo was so much different, man. Yeah.
What was your biggest takeaway from that deployment?
Okay, so at that time, now I'm ready to go back to 160th. Done some deployments. I got approval from the command to be an IP. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to go to IP school when I get back, and then I'm putting in my packet. So I'm dropping my packet. So I get Rick to sign off all my stuff for my app, my application, go back to regiment. That's all good. And in that In that application, there's 2 questions they ask you that are the reason I didn't go back to the 160th. One was, what's the most vulnerable moment you've had in your life? And what's the most, what's the biggest learning experience you had? And I can't remember exactly how the questions go, but so I wrote, like, when I was snowboarding one time, I took a jump, and I wasn't good at snowboarding, but I took this big old jump and I hit the ground and I landed on my back and my tailbone, and dude, bro, straight up blew it out, man. I crapped my pants and I'm laying on the side of a mountain, dude, just covered. And I remember just laying there. So I answered that. I was like, hey, I was snowboarding. I took a jump. I shit my pants. So that's that one. And then the other one was, what's your biggest learning experience? So I talked about that accident that I had. And I wrote, and they're, are you going to stop the effing helicopter? Well, and I wrote the words out. You asked, so I answer. Dude, like 2 weeks later, I get an email from the regiment XO telling me how big of a piece of crap I am. Like, we only expect the highest professionals in this unit and all this stuff. And I'm like, what? So I have this chip on my shoulder. Not only that, I was like, damn, dude, my mouth getting me in trouble again. So my biggest takeaway from that deployment was, shut up, dude. Like, when are you going to learn to use your words right and just stop being arrogant? And I don't want to say arrogant, but just like, when are you going to grow up, dude? Like, you don't have to drop F-bombs every time you talk to someone or whatever. I didn't learn completely, but like, that was a big takeaway, was just my mouth getting me, limiting my growth.
Is that something you changed today?
Oh yeah, dude. I don't like to swear. I'm definitely humble. Because my faith in God and all that, like, I'm definitely different when it comes to that, man. Yeah. So did you remember me, remember working out? And I walked into the office and I lost my legs that day in Afghanistan.
Bro, it's crazy, man, because you know me, I was always big in working out, right? And when I saw you and Fez doing all that shit, I looked dead in the eyes. I said, hey, you may want to like pull back a little bit, bro. Cause you remember me telling that? I was like, cause you literally went from not doing anything. Now you're doing all this crazy CrossFit shit with Fez. I mean, y'all 2 different people. Jay, I got it. I'm like, all right, bro. And then I'm sitting on the front patio and you fucking just fall down the stairs. I'm like, Joe, you all right, bro? He like, my legs, Jay, they ain't there. I'm like, what the fuck, man? And then I had to take over for you that night.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, man. I was concerned about you because I've never seen, for example, my legs right now are fucking sore. My legs are extremely sore right now because I hit them hard a few days ago. And I get it, but I've never seen anybody's legs like shut down like that. And when I saw it, I thought you were bullshitting me because you're like, Jay, this is not good. And then you and I think we were walking to the DFAC or somewhere together. You're going down them stairs, like 3 stairs, and you're like, doom. I'm like, Joe, you all right? You're like, no. I'm thinking, you got to be all right. Come on, Joe. And then you kept doing it. And I was like, oh, fuck no.
Bro, you guys had to get me to my room and get me in my bed. And dude, I didn't walk for 24 hours. Bro, I was terrified, dude. I'm like, dude, I've screwed myself up. Now, so another takeaway from that is stay in shape. All right. But that did jack me up, dude. Like, long term, I messed up some neurological stuff in my body, dude, doing that. And I didn't tell nobody, but dude, I had a lot of problems with my legs for quite a while after that. Like, I remember trying to get back, like getting into the gym and getting back in shape, dude. And that happened a couple more times, dude, from just riding a bicycle, dude. So I had neurological damage from that, dude. I got on my bike and I rode maybe a mile for like 5 minutes, whatever. And dude, I couldn't get off my bike. Like, I got off my bike, I couldn't stand up. That was a trip, dude. I remember sitting in my bedroom, dude. I'm peeing in a Gatorade bottle. And all I could think of, dude, is, am I not going to walk again, dude? Cause I worked out.
I'm not laughing, but I'm just looking back because I was there to experience it. And I remember the amount of concern I had for you,
bro,
because that shit it wasn't a pretty thing. It was not pretty.
Bro, you remember, dude, another thing that was memorable about that place. You remember the big ass lizards?
Yeah.
Bro, I'll never forget that big lizard the big old monitor would hang out in between our hangout area up above the Connex.
I was just
and the
gonna say that
CP.
bitch was under the porch all the time, yo.
Yeah. Well, I never forget one of the first nights I'm there or mornings, I come around the corner and here's this 6-foot lizard standing right in front of me. I'm like, oh, damn. Where have you been? And then the 82nd guys are like, oh, well, they sleep under the CP and under our hooches. Well, dude, you got to go walk 300 feet to go to use the bathroom at 2:00 in the morning. And all I could think of was, here's these marks from where these big ass lizards have been walking. I'm like, this dude's going to bite me on the ankle.
They're gonna eat you, bruh.
They eat me, man. They
We're
shut down the
driving
pot
up.
line because these big old monitor lizards. That's a
Shit,
trip.
man. We got a lot of good stories of that J-Bad deployment.
Oh, man, yeah.
So we get back from that deployment. How are you feeling then?
So that's the first time I started realizing that I had some mental health issues, man. You remember I don't want to say big, but when they did the attack on the base, and we all run to the what are the Hescos or whatever that you hide inside of. And I remember getting in there and some local guys got in with us. And dude, I just remember thinking, get me the hell out of here. They're attacking the base and here's some dude from Afghanistan in garb in here with me. Like, this dude's going to blow me up. So like, I'm like, get me the hell out of here. So I get out and I go get a cup of coffee and I'm sitting on the front porch, watching, but, so that's the first time, that was the first time I had a problem being in a confined area with people. And it's not like I had a huge problem with that afterwards, but that's the first time I was like, man, I started processing the Jonah thing when we came back from that. You know, I'd just gotten denied to go to the 160th because I ran my mouth. I got told I could come back later, but there was that. And then I think just everything kind of just caught up with me. You know, there was one time in 2010 where I was flying and we picked up a dude who was the escort for his buddy that died. And I remember flying with Amy, Captain Bauer, and we got this dude in the back of the aircraft. I'm talking to him on the radio. We're like 3 minutes out from landing. And I told him, like, it was the only time I got emotional on that first deployment, but dude, I could just see this dude was hurt. So I was like, what do I say to this guy? Because his friend is in the back of the aircraft behind us, dead. So I got on, dude, and I told him, I was like, hey, I just want to let you know that every person in this aircraft is proud of what you guys do. And it's small words, dude, to me, but, so I told him, I was like, I just want you to know, I'm like, as a pilot, I'm proud of you guys. And, you can be proud of, you know, your buddy back there. But I was like, hey, this is the last time you're going to get to salute your buddy in country. I was like, so when you get out, I'll make sure that when they take him off the aircraft, you know, salute him. I said, that's going to matter. And dude, I broke down. I tried keeping it in, but I remember looking at Captain Bauer and she looked over and I was crying, dude. Like, it just hit. But I pushed that down, right? I pushed the Jonah stuff down and just all the other crap that you go through and you see, because in my mind, it was like, dude, I'm just a medevac pilot. I'm not an infantryman, right? So I've never given myself enough credit for where I'm at, right? Like, there's always something more and there's always someone that's more important than me and what mission I'm in. Like, how do I have the right to be like PTSD or have these issues mentally when I'm not the medic, right? But that mental issue is the fact that, like, if you buy in and you drink the Kool-Aid, it don't matter, dude. Like, I was proud to be an American. I was proud of that mission, dude. Okay, yeah, I'm not out killing people. I'm not, you know, on the ground hiking and all that stuff and getting blown up, but like, I took it serious, dude. And when we came back from that deployment, it was like, all right, dude, I can't do med no more. So what's next? But, you know, that's when I first started having issues. Honestly, I left Campbell in 14 and I ended up going down to Rucker to be an IP.
Let me say something real quick, Joe. You know, I agree with you 100%. And it's crazy how we we as aviators, and this is the reason why I created the show, and I felt like we needed a platform to tell our stories, because we as aviators, we downplay the things that we do. Okay. And what I try to convey to everybody, the audience, my family members, even you, all our friends, we were the people that preserved life. And it's like a lot of the flight medics have said that already been on the show. We are seeing a lot of everybody that's on the back of that aircraft. We're seeing them at probably their worst moment in life. And it's like you said, we have that emotional connection to other Americans, or even just a human being. If you're a human being and you're seeing certain things, and if it doesn't like impact you even the slightest, when you see a man with his guts hanging out or his brain missing, if that doesn't bother you, I mean, I get it. But eventually it all catches up to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially the kids, man.
Yeah, the kids. Hell, I remember that day you and I went and picked up that little girl past Bostic. And we couldn't fly. We had to stay around 500 feet. And when we got back, that's the day we flew past those the 58s. And when we got back, they were like, "What the fuck is the medevac doing flying low and blah blah blah?" And I got on the phone. I was like, "Hey, sir, this is what happened." And they're like, "Oh, we're sorry."
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But it's just a testament of even all the great things that we've done in life and all the lives that we saved, we still try to downplay it. Because I get a lot of us don't want accolades. We don't want nothing because we just did our job. But at some moment in life, all of us, I deal with it, you deal with it, we all deal with the things that we had to encounter and the sacrifices we had to make just to preserve that life, right? Because think about how important that mission, what you just said about the soldier that was killed in action. How important is your job to make sure that this man gets home to his family? That is huge. Like we are the beginning of these guys getting home, so they could be the respect to be paid, and they could be buried with their families, and they could be treated like true heroes. So I get it, bro. It's but it catches up to us eventually. We just got to be ready. We're not going to be ready when it happens. We just got to figure out how we're going to try to process. So you leave Fort Campbell. You had enough of the medevac, which I get it, man. After 2 or 3 deployments, I mean, it's a good amount. And then you go down to Rucker. Did you leave Fort Campbell with a good taste in your mouth or a bad taste?
Oh, bro, it's a bad taste, dude. There are some things that happened with one of our senior warrant officer that came in. So, at that time, I'm in the unit 5 years, coming up on 5 years, and we had a new SP come in. And I don't want to talk bad on him, right? Because I think the dude, as an individual, the dude loves his family. He's still a soldier. He has supported people, but he was high on himself too, right? And I don't know if you were there for that.
I was.
But I put myself on the line, dude. Because when I came back from, I think it was IP school or whatever, he had just gotten there. And man, right off the bat, dude, guys were like, "Dude, this guy is toxic, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Well, hold on a second. This dude's bringing a high standard." And I'm like, "So get over yourselves and adapt to the standard. Don't care if you like him or not." And have you told him? No. Well, then why don't you go talk to him? Well, I'd wait a month and come to find out, I kind of agreed with him. Well, dude, this dude tries ending my career. And I mean, I stood in the office, in the TAC ops office with all the warrant officers, because we had this meeting to let him kind of, if you guys got a problem with me, let's air it out there. And all these dudes had talked crap about him. And look, I agree, but I wasn't going to badmouth him, dude. He's our SP. So he's standing in this office, and were you there? But he told me, he's like, "Look, there's some things that have been said, and we're not going to talk about those things that have been said, but if anybody has anything they want to say, let's go ahead and say it." And I'm looking around the room like, "All right, all of y'all that had something to say, let's get it done." Nobody said a word. So I was like, "I'll take care of this." And I told him, I was like, "The warrant officer that wants to be the professional mentor, that person's welcome here, because that's what we need as an SP." I said, "But the guy that wants to be the hammer and drop that hammer on everybody and treat them like crap, you ain't welcome here." And dude, the minute I did that, bro, That dude gunned me down. And it's like, all right, cool, whatever. I did what was right. You can't come in here, because in my eyes, that was my company, dude. Me and John King are the longest time people in the company that have been there. 2 deployments with this company. And here comes this person that's got a standard that, come to find out, was all BS, because I watched this dude go in and read the TERP manual about instrument stuff, which isn't even something that you can evaluate people on, which I created that common area so that you could plan, eat your food, and you debriefed at that common area so that when you made a mistake, the guy eating his sandwich would hear your mistakes and learn from that. Well, he turned that common area into, I'm going to go out and do an eval on you, and I'm going to treat you like crap. Well, I watched this dude find a question in the TERP manual of all things. He just belittled him. I was like, all right, dude, I got your number, bro. You're garbage. And I don't feel that way anymore, but at the time, dude, I was offended, right? But anyway, yeah, I didn't leave with a good taste in my mouth, man. I was upset.
It's crazy. I remember that situation. I remember us being, all the warrant officers being pulled up to battalion.
Ugh.
I remember that. And the crazy thing, because I was already MTP, senior W3. I didn't give a damn. But I remember you and I voicing our concerns. And around that time, that's when I was getting out the Army anyways.
Yep.
So I was like, y'all can't do shit to me, so let's burn this damn thing down to the ground if we have to. I'm okay with that. And
yeah,
I remember you speaking up, and they left your ass out there flapping in the wind, bro. It was sad to watch. I sat back, and that's when I really knew, at that moment in battalion, that's when I really knew it's time for me to get out of the Army. Because when I see everybody just throwing you under the bus, and I spoke up as much as I could, but once again, I'm leaving, right? I was like, man, this is a sad day. This is a sad day today. And I knew right there it was time for me to go. And I was okay with that. I made peace with it.
But you know what's cool about, I left angry that all that happened, but I tell you what, that whole mutiny crap that was happening, and I lost a lot of respect for the guys in our unit, man. They're going and talking behind this dude's back, whether you like him or not. Now you got an opportunity to right a wrong, and you ain't going to do it. Well, let me take care of it for you. Well, and I got my OER for the year, and I'm like, damn, dude, I'm going to go sit in front of this dude, and I'm going to get the worst OER you could get. It was the best OER I'd ever got, Jason. And that's when I realized I don't care about my career. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to do what's right, no matter what, whether I get fired or not. And that took more courage than going and flying in combat and anything else, dude, was making sure that this dude didn't get to do what he did to people, and righting the wrong, dude. And man, the commander, he threw my OER at me, and I'm like, damn, dude, I'm done. And I look and I was like, oh, damn, number 2 in battalion. What? And I was like, well, I'll be honest with you, sir. I didn't think it was going to go like this because of what happened. He's like, no, as a matter of fact, he's like, you just keep doing what you're doing as a soldier. And if you take that forward wherever you go, he's like, no matter what, just do what's right. I was like, damn, that's cool.
Damn. That's huge, man. You get down to Rucker, what happens next?
Let's see. So I get to Rucker, get into being an IP, and I loved it, man. You know, when I was a new warrant officer in the med, you remember they call you the bull woj? Yeah, the bull woj. So when all the new guys came up, you're the guy that asks all the questions, and you're making these guys understand what it's like to be part of the. So I was the bull woj for a while, and I took that to heart, and I treated people like crap. And then, but the reason I did that was because, like, I truly had a high standard for myself, and I expected everyone else to take it as passionate as I did. So I wasn't there to be a jerk to you just because it's part of the hazing process. No, it's like, for real, like, show up, do what's right. But anyway, so then when I go to IP school, right, to be an instructor pilot, they told you, like, you got to be the guy that people are willing to come and talk to. I got to be able to come and ask you questions. So that humbled me. And then when I got to flight school, I remember what it was like going through flight school and having idiot IPs. Bro, I had an IP and instrument sniff a marker. Sitting at table talk, and he looked at me, he's like, you want some? Bro, I'm like 30 years old. No, bro, I don't want to sniff your marker. I'm here for you to teach me how to fly a helicopter. But thank you. So I took all those experiences, and my goal was I'm not going to treat anybody like crap anymore. I've been to combat. Treating me like crap in the helicopter didn't make me a better pilot. All it did for me was it made it so stressful that I'm going to fail because you're so worried about if I make a mistake. That was my idea. So when I became an IP, I was like, nope, this ain't how I'm going to roll.
What was the moment that changed you? Because that's pretty significant to go from that. Was there a situation that happened that you say, no, I need to cut the shit and I need to really start changing the person I am because it really matters?
I think it was just an accumulation of all the experiences I had, right? Like being confident, being cocky, balling up an aircraft, deployments, you know, starting to understand that there's emotional effects to combat, right? What I dealt with leaving Charlie Company 6th Battalion, how that went down, that, you know, you ain't got to be the hammer, right? Because all it does is make people like resent you.
Correct.
And then I'm like, dude, I love flight schools. So I remember Mike Johnson, that first IP I told you about, dude, I loved that guy. He was calm, cool. He didn't treat you like crap. And it was a learning environment for me that I thrived. And then I got this dude that wants to sniff markers and yell at me. And I was a horrible instrument pilot for years because of that. This dude would yell at me, peanut butter and jelly, point to the HSI and then, you know, my nav, peanut butter, jelly. I'm like, I don't know what the F peanut butter and jelly is, bro. Teach me. So I took all that and I'm like, dude, I'm just going to teach these guys and I want them to enjoy this experience. It's the end of flight school. You're in a mic model. You already know how to fly a helicopter. I'm just here to teach you how to fly a mic model. And honestly, dude, I wanted them to enjoy their experience, man. Like, I'm a senior guy now. I'm a W3. Hopefully people are looking up to the way I act, and the way I treat other human beings. So I just had fun, dude. As much fun as I could possibly have in that helicopter with those new students and give them the longest leash I could give them, bro. And it was great. Never had a student fail. Almost had one. But I'll tell you the biggest takeaway, because I know that's what you're going to ask me, from being an instructor pilot was everybody's life is different. You can't treat everybody the same. No two people learn the same way. So I had this kid, I call him a kid. He's not a kid. I used to get mad at the guys for calling them kids because I'm like, they're not children, they're adults.
I agree 100%. That shit used to piss me off at SEER too. Do not call these grown-ups kids. They are grown. Some of them are older than us. Do not call them kids.
So Army Learning Model 2015 was teaching the adult learner. Well, you know, you go through all the psychology in flight or as an IP to understand the different ways to teach. Well, I had my way and I'm still a junior IP essentially, right? I'm teaching these guys and I'm starting to recognize, okay, I think I need to change a little bit with certain individuals on how I instruct. Well, I had this dude that, like, he kept trying to kill me. Straight up. I'm nice to him. I'm like, all right, man, you need to do this. You know, you need to do that. I get it together. And, you know, I'm like, come on, man. Like, but I'm not belittling nobody. And this dude would, like, he didn't understand how the collective trim release worked. So he'd pick up the helicopter off the pad and, you know, he'd let go of it. And then the aircraft would try to hit the ground. And I'm like, bro, you're trying to kill me. Hold the damn switch. Let's go. Well, anyway, it wasn't working. And finally, dude, I'd had enough of it, dude. And I just yelled at him. I said, quit being a you know what and fly the stupid helicopter. I belittled him. And bro, like a light switch, this dude was like, okay, I'm on it. And dude, he switched. So I'm like, so do I have to treat this dude like crap to get him to succeed? And I did, bro. I had to treat this dude like garbage for him to succeed. And then I met his dad at family day. It was the biggest learning moment I had the whole time I was an IP for 4 years there was everybody's different. So I meet this dude's dad at family day around the aircraft. He walks up to me and I was like, hey man, I just want to let you know, I'm extremely proud of your son. You should be very proud of your son. He cuts me off. He's like, yeah, I was an E6 in the Army, blah, blah, blah. And he starts talking about himself. I was like, okay. I was like, well, that's cool. But you know, your son, you know, He worked really hard to be where he's at today, and you should be proud. Yeah, I did this in the Army and that, and I was like, okay, now I know why. So it humbled me as a person to recognize that no two people are the same, and you've got to be able to adjust who you are in that aircraft to tailor to everybody. And that carried me on to life. Like, I don't know what you're going through. You don't know what people are going through, man. And I learned that in flights, or being an IP at flight school. Every one of these guys is different. And honestly, you know what I learned even more than that, Jason, was the more I talked, the worse they did. You don't have to micromanage these dudes in the aircraft. I remember when it came to instruments, I finally got to the point where I started teaching these kids. It's like, all right, God, I'm sorry. They're not kids. They're adults. I'm just 47 now, and I was 30 then. So I told him, I was like, you got 3 days. I'm going to walk you through all the radio calls, how to get out of low Army airfield, and how we get to the corridor. You got 3 days figured out. I was like, because from then on, I remember being in the back seat. You got all the answers in the back because you ain't under pressure. I was like, so I'm going to just take myself out of this. So we get in the aircraft. It's your aircraft. I'm just here to make sure you don't die. And when we're at the stage field, I'm going to just tell you what the next traffic pattern is. I said, and eventually you're going to tell me what the next traffic pattern is. And I ain't going to talk to you. And dude, that's what I did. And especially in instruments, I just took myself out of the picture and I told them, you guys crew coordinate. You guys manage the radios. You guys run the whole ship. I'm just there to make sure we don't die. And bro, the best thing I did in that aircraft as an IP was shut my mouth, because I don't think the Army's got it figured out right. Everything's the PC's the one in charge. They make all the decisions, and the guy next to you is just a dependent on you. And especially when you're flying with an IP, oh, they're going to fail me. I'm not going to say something right. There's all these different factors that go into it. And you're just a stress ball to them. So I promised them, I was like, look, I am not going to fail you as long as you continue to try. You might not get a good grade today, but you show improvement, I'm not going to fail you. And I never had to fail anybody because I just stopped. I was like, all right, cool. Table talk, know what you're supposed to know, get in the aircraft, and we'd be sitting there ready to contact tower. And they'd be like, sir, do you want me to, make the radio call to tower? We're 3 weeks into it. I just look, do you want me to call tower? Mm-hmm. The guy in the back, the dude's got all the answers, right? Yes, he wants you to call tower, remember? We get to make radio calls. Like, oh, that's right. Like, you know what you're doing. Don't worry about me. Just go fly this helicopter. You're going to do fine. So that was just part of the big takeaways I had from.
It's crazy how you got to get around students to realize that. And it's crazy that the Army, in the Army's defense, they did create crew coordination training, right? To mitigate that. But as you and I know, some people, it takes them long to learn stuff and really actually act like a crew and not be so intimidating. And but yeah, I agree with you, man. I think the Army, and I hope the Army hears this when I say this, the Army could change a lot of things if they got truly serious about leadership. Truly serious. That's simple. I'm talking about the way that academia trains leadership in colleges and there's courses and they make it serious. I think the Army could fix the problem if they implement those things instead of all you have to do is sit around, buy your time. We're just going to continue to promote you.
Right.
If they really did it off, truthful merit in your performance and how you really treat people, I think that'll make a big difference. When you leave Rucker, where do you go?
I go to Egypt.
How was that?
That was this is where my story changes a lot. So I'm gonna back up. So 2018, I go to Egypt. I'm gonna back up 3 years. So 2015, I'm an IP, and I made my mistakes on what I said to go back to 160th. But my connections to that, that environment, I wanted to go to the East Coast and fly for a squadron. So I was, in 2015, the best shape I've ever been in my life, Jason. I got focused on, this is where I'm going. I'm going back to the tip of the spear. I was in phenomenal shape. I had my mind right. And then I was working out one day in my garage, and this matters. and I got vertigo. Never forget, I laid down to do a pullover over my head, and bro, my world just started spinning. And the minute that happened, Jason, I knew my career was over. Like I got vertigo, dude. How you gonna be a pilot with vertigo? All right, so I go through that. That's the first time.
Explain vertical real quick, the seriousness of it, because once again, if we don't have our senses as a pilot, that means helicopters going to fly out of the sky at a violent rate. So just real quick, vertigo, what happened there?
So for me, anytime I would lift my head up and to the right, I'd get dizzy and the room would spin. I had zero, like I lost balance. I'd fall over. I couldn't stand up. I'd get sick. So my room is spinning, dude. And it wouldn't stop for a long time too. So it was called benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. It only happened when I'd look up and to the right. So what happens is you got these little things inside your ears that give you your position on Earth, and they're little tubes, and crystals would get into those tubes, and it would make my brain think I'm going one way when I'm not. And then all of a sudden, dude, you're out of it. So that started happening, and as soon as that happened,
one more thing, Joe. How important as a Black Hawk pilot is it for you to look up and to the right?
Every day, all night, because look, you can have a blind cockpit, which means I can reach up and I can know where that switch is, but you got to look up and verify it. Because you go and hit the wrong switch when you're flying at night, guess what? You might have just turned off some stuff that you don't want to turn off or turn it on. So it's important. Like you're always looking up to the right.
And I only asked you that question because I just want people to understand the seriousness of the situation. Because, vertigo, hell, you got vertigo. No, when we literally look up and to the right 1,000 times in one flight, I think that's pretty important.
So I had my ways of getting around that. I trained all my students. You always make sure when the other pilot says they're going to manipulate a switch, you double check. Because what I'd do is I had blind cockpit down. So I'd reach up, Roger, I got this switch, and they'd look for me, and then I'd hit it. So that was my way of hiding it. Like, okay, I don't have to look up and to the right. Because if I, in flight school as an IP, you're sitting left seat the majority of the time. So it's like every damn day I'm looking up and to the right. And when you're on the ground at Low Army Airfield on Tango 12 or whatever the freaking pad is, and you look up and all of a sudden, and you got a student next to you and the aircraft's running, and it's like, oh, damn, I got to go take off in a minute. And I sure as hell ain't telling nobody, because the minute I tell somebody I got vertigo, my career's over. Well, anyway, so that happened. I knew I wasn't going to get selected to go back to the unit I wanted to go to, and depression hit, dude. And all those years of my childhood, my career, the mistakes I'd made, the proving myself to my dad and my family that I wasn't a screw up in life, everything I'd done came crashing down, dude. And that was the beginning of becoming suicidal. Because in my mind, it was like, I've done all these things. I ain't got nothing to live for no more. Because that was there was no other plan, dude. I'm a pilot now. There's nothing else that matters. And truly, when I think back of all the people I've worked with, if I've done you wrong, I never meant to do you wrong because I didn't respect you. I was in a position in my life where I had so much regret for the way I treated people growing up that when I became a pilot, I felt like I had been redeemed and that I had proven myself to all the people that didn't think I was going to make it. And then when I knew that was going to go away, dude, I was just like, dude, I don't have anything to live for. And dude, I got 2 kids. I got an amazing wife, but you don't process it that way, right? So that happens. I hide it. I did find out, I did go to the doc finally, and I was like, hey, I got vertigo. So they checked me out and they're like, all right, cool. You can take some medicine and you can still fly. I was like, oh, cool. But that didn't stop. But I was still like, dude, there's no, I might be able to be an IP at Fort Rucker, but there's no way the 160 is going to let me come back and be doing the stuff they do with the vertigo. So I was already like in a step, that snowball started rolling. And I didn't know how to handle it. I wasn't going to tell nobody. I started boozing hard. And then I got Egypt. I found out I was going to Egypt, and I was like, damn, dude. All right. So now I'm going to go to Egypt and I'm going to be the SP. Not a big deal, dude. I've learned how to hide this and deal with it. I've got my ways to not let anyone know I've got this problem. We're good. So then my life changed significantly, man, in 2017. And I'll try not to go on too long, but I think this is the most important part about my story, which is don't give up. So Angela was pregnant and my youngest son, and we thought he was going to have Down syndrome. And dude, I don't feel guilty, but man, at the time, in my eyes, it was like, dude, I ain't got time to have a kid that has special needs because I got a career that I need to worry about.
Damn.
And I'm still going through, like, I got vertigo now, and am I going to get into the unit? And am I going to get it to where I want to be? And just what a selfish person, right? But I didn't know how to handle it, right? Like, just doing it the way I knew how to do it. Suppress, move forward. Suppress, move forward. And I got these problems. Well, then that happened, so that was stressful. I already know I'm going to Egypt in a couple months, 2 months after my son's born. Turns out he didn't have Down syndrome, which either way, I came to terms with how cool it was going to be to have a kid with Downs. Because, like, honestly, if you want to know who the people are in the world that are never going to judge you and they are full of love and no judgment, it's people with Downs. Like, I think they're truly the most, like, true, honest people I've ever met in my life. So I kind of came to grips with, like, dude, this is going to be cool. Anyway, he ended up not having it, but 2 weeks before he was born, I was driving on post at Rucker, and that's the first time I had brain fog. So the best way I can explain how this worked with me was, you know how when you're flying or you're driving and it's a hazy day and you don't have that detail and that texture, right? And it just, everything kind of seems faded. And on a normal, crisp spring day where the leaves are bright, brilliant, and vibrant, that's the normal day. And then all of a sudden I had this hazy, I was driving, I remember thinking, dang, dude, everything looks weird. And it lasted for, like, I don't know, maybe a minute. And I was like, whatever, cool. Keep driving. I'm doing all my out processing stuff, getting ready. And then it happened again like a week later. And I was like, man, this is weird, whatever. No big deal, push on. And I'm still dealing with all this other stuff, man. And I am stressed out by the fact that I'm about to go be the SP and I got vertigo bad. And I ain't telling nobody. And so I get to Egypt on January 19th, 2018. I get there at night. My buddy Brian Lee, I wasn't friends with him at the time. I show up, he meets me at the airport. All my gear is left behind. Like, dude, long story with that, doesn't matter. But I meet him and he's like, hey, I just want to let you know that you're not going to be the SP no more. I'm going to be the SP. And I'll be honest with you, dude. It was the biggest relief ever. Because, dude, I'm like, dude, I've been having all these problems. I'm depressed. I got vertigo. And now I'm having to take on being the SP in another country and all these different things. And it's a big mission, right? That's like 3:00 in the morning. I get into my barracks. I wake up in the morning and I walk out the back door and I look at the Red Sea. And that brain fog has never stopped. So it happened a couple of times where it's like, dude, this doesn't feel right. Nothing's clear. And dude, I walked out that door and it never has stopped. I've gotten used to it, but bro, when I started flying there, we go back from a Mike model back to a Lima. And those aircraft there, they had, you remember the backup control head for the radio, the backup control head down low, that had all the switches.
Yeah.
That was your primary radio in that aircraft. And it's like, what moron decided to put the worst designed radio control head as the primary, right? But luckily, for some reason, that was something I pointed out to my students was, you guys need to know how to use this because someday you're going to use a SATCOM and all this stuff, and you'll only know how to use it for a SATCOM. But I trained that specifically, so that was no problem. But anyway, I get back into the Lima model, and bro, I started not being able to understand what I was reading. And it's a trip, man. And the hardest part about all this is when no one sees it and it's not a physical disability, people think you're full of it and they doubt you. And there ain't nothing worse to an individual who wants to succeed knowing that people are looking at you like, dude, look at this turd. Right. And no one thought that about me, but I did. So I'm in the aircraft and I remember trying to program the 128 Delta GPS head unit. And dude, I'd used it for years. Bro, I couldn't get it to work. I remember going, what the F, dude? So I get out the manual and I'm reading through the manual and I'm going through the switches trying to get this GPS to load our route. Even reading the checklist or the manual, I couldn't get it to work. So I remember going and telling my buddy Brian, the SP, I was like, hey, dude, I got a problem, man. I just want to let you know that I'm something's going on where, one, I've got this brain fog, and now I'm not able to understand what I'm reading, and I'm not able to use the equipment. He's like, okay, well, what do we do? And I was like, well, I don't want to stop flying. So being the number 2 IP in the company, I was like, look, let's just set this up to where I'm flying with other other pilots that are competent. Like, you moron, right? So I'm so selfish that I can't give up my career. I'm putting all these other dudes in danger, man. I've got vertigo. I can't operate the equipment that I'm a freaking IP with 18 years in the Army. Like, how dumb am I going to feel if I look over at this dude like, hey, dude, I don't know how to run this machine, dude. No confidence, right? So I'm lying through my teeth. I'm lying to myself and I'm lying to my peers. That just starts steamrolling, dude. So we're flying from the Sinai Peninsula to Tehran Island, and it's a resupply mission to the guys on top doing observation. The only way there is helicopter. So you're doing sling loads and all this stuff. And when I realized I was really messed up, dude, so we had a manifest for all the loads that we were going to do. And we had 10 loads that day, and I'm flying with Brian. We had 10 back and forths. And I would check off on the manifest every time, right? We did load 1, done. Load 2, done. Load 3, done. Blah, blah, blah. Well, we're getting ready to depart the island and head back over to get resupply. So I call tower, hey, we're departure Tehran Island, inbound CS4. And Brian looks over, he's like, what are you doing, dude? I was like, well, we just finished load 4. We're going back to CS4. He's like, he kind of laughed, or at least that's how I remember it. And it was like, no, dude, we're done. Bro, I flew an hour and a half, and I don't remember any of it.
Damn.
I didn't remember any of it. So I'm so stressed out, and whatever's going on, like, I don't remember it. And I remember thinking, oh, damn. But I still wasn't willing to give up. Dude, this is like, I got there in January. This is probably 2 months later. And then I started telling him, I was like, hey, dude, I got to go get checked out. Something's going on, dude. Now I'm starting to break down, bro. I'm in Egypt. My son's just born. I'm dealing with all this internal struggle with vertigo and all these different things. I'm realizing I've been suicidal for 3 years because I see my career's coming to an end. My image of who I am isn't going to be who I am anymore. And dude, I had a breakdown. So I ended up we did simulators in Germany to keep our sim currency. So I was like, hey dude, I told Brian, I was like, send me to Germany to the simulator. So we go to Germany, and the whole goal was like, I need to get to Ramstein or whatever it was. I need to go get checked out. So as soon as we got there, I called back to the command. I was like, hey, I'm going to the dock. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to the dock. I've got issues. So I go to the dock. I spend 2 weeks in Germany. They run me through every test. They find some stuff in my brain. They find a cyst in my brain, sleep apnea. They run me through every test. They're not sure if I'm having seizures or what. And I'm not like completely stressed, but we keep this all low key, bro. So I get back and they're like, all right, cool. You're still on the flight schedule. Cause they didn't find anything like that could document you're messed up. So there's nothing wrong with you. It's behavioral health, right? So I keep flying. I almost crashed flying at night from Israel, coming back down to the base down at South Camp. I almost dipped the aircraft in the water, dude. I basically put the tail in the water because I'm yelling at tower, and they're Egyptians, right? So there's already communication issues. They don't like you being there. So I'm yelling at tower because he didn't give me what I wanted. I'm stressed, bro. And I stopped flying, dude. I'm just screaming at this dude on the radio. And all of a sudden I hear my crew chief scream, climb. And bro, almost dipped us in the water at night, dude.
Damn.
So I'm like, okay, I need to stop flying, but I ain't going to quit. So then I just work it out with my buddy, like, hey, dude, like, let's figure this out to where I can keep going. And it's not his fault, man. Like, I was a pretty convincing person. Like, he kind of knew what was going on, but I didn't really let him in on all of it. You know, hey, I've got waivers for flying with vertigo, but they didn't know about all the other stuff. And like I was telling you, like when he looked at me, like, what are you talking about, dude? We're going home. I didn't tell him I didn't remember flying, right? Because he's the SP. Like at that point, he's going to ground me. So I lied to him about that. So anyway, my last flight that I flew, bro, I'm an absolute wreck, dude. Like I had no will to live anymore, dude. I'm in Egypt. Now I had fun, dude. I went to the beach every day. I was like, if I'm going to be jacked up, I'm going to the beach every day. But anyway, I'm flying with this dude and we're doing an eval for an FEB and it's at night.
For an FEB?
Yeah. Well, we're getting ready. Like this is his last check ride to see if it's FEB time. Right. So they're like, hey, Joe, will you do his flight to see if he needs to be FEB'd or not? And I'm like, all right, whatever, dude. And it's nighttime. And we got to go to Tehran Island, do some ops at Tehran Island. And then we got to fly all the way up to a place called Taba, which is right up by Israel. And we're going to do a crew swap with the North Camp guys. And then I'm going to fly those guys back and do this hot swap. When we get over to the island, he does his stuff. He's not doing all that great. And then I was like, hey, call tower, let him know we're heading north to Israel. And he starts jacking the radios up, dude. And remember, like, at this point, bro, I still legit didn't even know how to use the GPS no more, dude. I used to teach this thing, dude. So I'm so freaking out of it. I'm like, and I start yelling. I'm like, bro, you don't know how to use the freaking radio? And that, like, I'm yelling at him because I'm mad at myself, right? And I didn't want to fail him, but dude, we're in guard. We're transmitting to everybody in freaking Saudi Arabia and Egypt. Like, just get this effing thing out of guard and let's go. Because I didn't know how to do it, dude. So we get all the way up to Taba. We do our crew swap. We come back, and I went in and I told Brian, it was June. And I just told him, I was like, hey, dude, I'm done. And the hardest part about all that I still struggle with was, like, medically at the time, like, for a flight physical, it's like, hey, you're good. You can keep flying. But, dude, I'm going to kill somebody. And, you know, this is my whole life is wrapped up into this gig. And I just had to tell him, like, if I keep doing this, I'm going to kill someone. And honestly, I didn't care, dude. Like, I wanted to die. But I didn't want to kill anyone else. Damn. So I stopped. And that was tough, dude, because then I came back. I'm 18 years in the Army now, bro. I come back and
they sent you back home. They sent you home early?
They did. I spent 8 months and then they sent me home. Because at that point I said, look, I can't fly no more. And I'm just taking up a slot for you guys. And it's a high op tempo mission out there. I was like, you guys need to get someone else here. And they did. Thankfully, I was supposed to go to Fort Lewis after that and be an SP at Lewis. And I called Branch and I was like, look, here's the deal. I'm going home. You're going to send me to Rucker. I can't go back. I can't go to Lewis, man. Like, I'm about to get MEB'd. And they're like, what was wild, dude? Everyone wants to go to Lewis, bro. Everyone wants to go to Washington State because it's beautiful up there, right? So I called Branch. I was like, hey, I want to go back to Rucker where my family's at. And I wasn't telling them about me. I was like, my son has disabilities and he needs to be in the doctor's offices where he's at. Because, you know, you ain't going to tell nobody nothing, right? Like, in my head, I knew, but I ain't telling them that I got all these problems because then for sure I ain't going to fly no more. Because I had hope, dude. Like, we're going to get this figured out. So anyway, these dudes were like, no, you're going to Lewis. I'm like, wait a minute. How many people are begging to get out of going to Fort Rucker, Alabama, right? And you're telling me, no, you're going to, you know, you can't stay where nobody wants to go? It's like, dude, HRC, you guys are the biggest idiots I've ever met. Anyway, so I write a letter saying, look, dude, I got a hardship with my family. They let me stay. Well, then, dude, just the biggest kick in the pants was I get back and it's like, what am I going to do? They're like, oh, you're going to be the Battalion S3. I ain't going to be Battalion S3, dude. I knew the Brigade XO and I was like, hey, dude, you got a spot for me while I'm going through all this crap? And I ended up being I was going to be the night vision devices branch chief. And it's like, all right, whatever. I remember going through MVG class and you're like, all right, whatever. These dudes are all washed up. You know, they're teaching night vision goggles and all this stuff. Or I remember saying the same thing about the SEER instructors. Oh, you used to be a pilot, but now you're a SEER instructor. You're washed up. You know what I mean? And here I am, right? I'm the washed up dude. Like just, I'm on the verge of, losing it. And now I'm teaching MVG class. And bro, I gave like all my F's were gone, bro. Like I didn't give an F about nothing. Dude, I dropped the F bomb in that classroom probably 100 times every class. Like, here's the answers to the test. It's MVGs, look through them, pre-flight them, all this other crap you got to know is a bunch of garbage. Bro, I had a bad taste in my mouth.
Do you think that was God giving you some humble pie?
Bro, you know what? Yes. So
I'm gonna teach you a lesson. I'm gonna put you through the ringer to teach you this lesson so you can bring that shit down a little bit.
Bro, he humbled me, man. And I learned that a couple years later. So I go through all that. I spent the whole entire last 18 months of my career in a doctor's office, TBI Institute up at Benning, trying to get to Walter Reed or trying to get to these facilities that can figure out neurologically, why am I losing track of time? Bro, I was in 2 accidents. I didn't drive a car for a year.
Damn.
It was that bad, dude. Like I'd pull up to a stop sign and I wouldn't even look, dude. I'd just go. Like I wouldn't even look. And I pulled out in front of traffic. I almost T-boned my family. I stopped driving. So anyway, I retire in the MVG lab. Just look, dude, for me, it mattered. Like I want the ceremony. I want hey, see you later. You had a great career. And no, nothing against the guys that were there, but I've got 8 people at my retirement ceremony or I didn't do the retirement ceremony that most people do. I was like, I don't want nothing to do with it. Get me the hell out of the Army and get me as far away as I can because I'm done. So then I retire. We move back to California. I get here and I made it 9 months in California. And I'm like, get me the hell out of California. What was I thinking coming back to this place?
Mm-hmm. Did they ever figure out what was going on with you? Do you got the VA tied into it now?
Oh yeah, the VA. I was terrified. So they put me up for an MEB, but because of the way all the doctor's appointments I'd gone to, they can't find a physical defect, like why I'm losing my memory type stuff. But I've got all the other things and I'm on the fence. Like, dude, I don't know if I'm going to get 100% disability, but I ain't got no job when I get out. I'm losing track of time. I can't read a book. I can't understand what I'm doing. So I even told the command, my buddy was the Brigade XO. I thought he was starting to work against me. I'm like, I don't trust you guys. You're going to kick me out. I'm going to get out at 19 years. I'm not going to get a retirement. I'm not going to get any disability. So I was like, nope, I'm making it 20 years at least. That's just a mess, dude. And so we leave. I'm like, cool, freedom. All the psychiatrists are like, hey, or psychologists are like, this is all behavioral health. Dude, you ain't got nothing wrong with you. It's all in your head. And they're like, once you've been gone away from the Army for 6-9 months, dude, you'll find out you're better. I was like, all right, whatever, cool. Get back to California. I moved to the city next door because the town I grew up in burnt down in 2018. The whole city burnt down. So that threw a wrench in things. But anyway, with all the homeless and the way this state works, I was just like, dude, I can't stay here. And dude, honestly, I was just trying to figure out who I was in life. I was trying to figure out where do I fit in. And I didn't want to be around anyone in the military. But the minute I showed up in Chico, where I moved to, dude, these people, my whole neighborhood already knew who I was. Like, oh, you're a Black Hawk pilot, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, yeah, I used to be cool. But I'm not telling them what's wrong. But it was too much, man, because, when you're 42 years old and you're retired and you can't work and you don't want to tell nobody like, hey, dude, I can't read a book and I can't understand what I'm reading. Everybody's asking, well, what are you going to be a pilot here? No, I'm not going to be a pilot here. Well, what do you do for work? I'm retired. Dude, you're too young. You can't be retired. What are you going to do with yourself? And dude, I'm just trying to hang on, dude. And so that was too much. And I was just like, okay, California ain't it. So I talked my wife into selling everything. We buy an RV. I build a cool Jeep. We're going to go travel the United States for 2 years. God's like, dude, you're stupid. So that didn't work. He's like, nope, I'm going to break this RV and I'm going to keep you in California. You're going to learn today. Literally, we move into our RV that night and it rains 10 inches of rain. It leaks. The toilet don't work. I spend 6 months in an RV trying to get this stupid thing fixed. I got no place to live. So that's when I really got close to God.
Joe,
So,
your wife is with you through this whole time, huh?
yeah. Yeah. She's, like, I don't think spouses get the accolades they should if they stick it out with their husband for 20 years. And, I put Angela through hell. I wasn't like, my focus wasn't on her. It wasn't on my family. It was all me, right? Like, what is Joe Wonacott going to do for Joe Wonacott?
That is a woman sent by God in your life, bro.
Oh, I truly wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her and my kids.
Bro, that is, it's crazy. You know, I'm living with that right now, how he will pull us back.
Mm-hmm.
He will pull us back. And I firmly believe you just gotta, pray on it, man. And he'll answer those prayers.
Yeah.
What advice would you give a young soldier or anyone dealing with mental health?
Don't buy into the stigma, dude. If you got mental health and you're just bottling up inside, and if you don't talk to somebody about it, some people might make it through it and be all right, but there's no shame, dude. There's no shame. And if it means that your career ends, I mean, so what? I mean, if you're going to kill yourself, then you're ending your career, your life. You're ruining other people's lives. So what are you scared of? So, go talk and, just don't be afraid of what people think, man.
I think that's so important, man. We live in a society, in a world now that people, and I was there too. That's why I could say this, right? I cared about what people thought about me when I was getting MEB'd and retiring from the Army. I look back and now, one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. And all those people that talk poorly about me, want the shit all over me, are any of them a pivotal person in my life now? No, I can't remember their name. I think that's a message that we have to tell a few people, young people, the very impressionable ones, gentlemen like you and I, that we spent our whole young adult life in the Army and our whole identity is tied up in the Army, right? And then when we leave, everything's snatched away from us. And we all fall into that dark place of what am I going to do now? And my whole identity, it's crazy. What lessons or takeaways do you hope the listeners will gain from your story?
I think the biggest one is, no matter how low your low is, someone's there with you. And for me, that was God. I know not everybody's spiritual, but, for me, it was relying on God. And if you don't believe in God, okay, I hope you do someday, but, find somebody that you can trust and have the confidence that when you talk to them, that they have your health is part of, your better of your health is their interest, right? If that makes sense, which is, like there's just, don't be afraid to talk to people, man. And, just don't quit.
Yeah. What's your biggest regret in life?
I think the biggest regret I have in life is just not telling the people that I've learned things from, the people that had a big impact on my life, not letting them know that they did, right? Because there's a lot of people, man, that I was in Charlie Company with. I was in like just my whole military career that I learned a lot from a lot of people, and I never told them that, right? And I think that's good constructive feedback, whether you're looking for that accolade or not. When you've done something that affects somebody's life and it changes their life, you don't have to have it be told, but I wish I would have told those people, one, thank you, right? One, thank you for being there for me, or just how much they've impacted my life and those, how I made decisions in my life.
It's not too late, Joe.
No, you're right. And then the other is like, I've never been good at staying in contact with people. And that's something I want to change about myself, because when I left the Army, like truly, I was so hurt that I didn't want to talk to nobody. I didn't want nothing to do with anyone. And that ain't the right answer, dude. What I did was I made it even worse, because like, it sounds stupid, and I hate the term battle buddy, right? Because, dude, it sounds stupid, but it's the truth, dude. Like, those people it is a band of brothers, and there are bonds there. Like, you know, I called Jason Cho when my mom's husband chopped his arm off on accident, and he's, 1,000 miles away, and he's 100 miles away from them. And I was like, hey, dude, my stepdad chopped his arm off. My mom's flying to the airport, and she needs someone to get a gun case for him. Can you do it? I didn't realize. I thought he was right there in the same city. Dude lives 100 miles away. I hadn't talked to Jason in years. He's like, got you, bro. The dude goes and buys a gun case, spends $150 on it, drives 100 miles, doesn't know my family, gives it to my mom, turns around and goes home.
I'm laughing because that is the true spirit of a soldier right there. And I'm here to tell you, bruh, a lot of people love and care about you, man. I'm here to tell you, a lot of people, and I even dealt with that too, right? I battled with that shit. Man, people don't give a fuck about me. And then I started realizing, you know what? This is just some bullshit lie that I'm telling myself, man. And it's a defense mechanism, right? From a childhood, you had the trauma with your childhood, the things we deal with the Army, then the Army abandons us. Like, we continuously deal with this abandonment issues. So what do? Instead of, being vulnerable with the people that truly care about us, we just push everybody away. And I've dealt with that shit every day, and I'm trying to fix it every single day. But bro, I'm here to tell you, shit, you need anything from me. This is what I tell all my friends that I care about, especially in the Army or people that I'm close with. Give me the opportunity to say no.
For real. Yep.
Don't make that decision for me. Cause you don't know what I do, what I'm willing to do for you, right?
Exactly.
So just give me that opportunity to say no. And just so you know this, you're one of the first people I reached out to. You saw how long ago I reached out to you via Messenger. I couldn't find you. I'm like, where the fuck is Joe at? And I'm calling everybody. They're like, yo, Joe fell off the planet. I'm like,
yeah. And
all I do is, and this is God working. Once again, I dropped the mustard seed, right?
Yep.
I figure you're never going to see that. Damn, 3 months later, I get a phone call from you 334. I'm like, I'm not answering that. And you're like, hey, Santiago, it's Joe. I'm like, it's Joe. I stop what I'm doing and I go at you back. But that's just know that, man. Like, I get what you're talking about. And I know we have to get out of our way sometimes, but just keep working on yourself, man.
Oh, thank you, brother. Well, I just want to say too, if you hadn't started doing this, I don't know, I probably wouldn't have shared a lot of that. And so I appreciate what you're doing, man, because, me being a pilot, whatever, I mean, is what it is. But, there's a lot of the medics and the crew chiefs. One of the guys said it, like the crew chiefs don't get enough credit. Like, they're the most underrated person in that aircraft, I think, when it comes to like how much they've done. And I think you giving all of us a voice is great, man. So I think what you're doing is amazing, and it is part of it. And listening to all these guys I've gone through all these things with, it is rehabilitation, man, because there's a lot of things I forget, dude. Like, there's a lot of stuff I don't remember. And listening to some of these guys talk, it's like, oh, damn, I do remember that. And then there's also some stuff where it's like, man, I hope they don't say my name, because.
I learned this from a historian on March 5th this year. It's crazy I remember that day, but it was such a pivotal moment in my life because it's now changing. It's changing the trajectory of my life with some decisions I'm about to make. He said, we as human beings have to understand the importance of our stories. If we don't capture and tell our stories, that dies with us.
Yep.
And we may be holding the only piece of information that the world may know to something. And if it dies with that individual, the world will never know.
That's it, for sure.
And this is why I tell everybody, it's so important to tell your story. What would you tell the younger Joe? or your younger son or your younger daughter? What would you tell the younger version of you right now?
So it would be so James 1:19-20 would my dear brothers be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger, because the anger of man does not, what is it? The anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. And what that means to me is, open your ears more, close your mouth, don't judge people against yourself. But really, truly, to my younger self would just be, shut your mouth and open your ears, man, because you can learn a lot more by listening than you can by talking.
3 words to describe yourself.
Some people might not believe it, but I'm humble. I'm humble now. I'm definitely passionate and empathetic.
So what's gonna happen with Joe? What's the future for Joe?
So I'm let's see, in August I'm going to Michigan for 9 months to master the craft of building furniture. That's what I do now. I'm retired and I build furniture. The VA's got free school, so I'm gonna use it, and I'm gonna go cut wood, bro. So I'm gonna go figure that out and have fun with that and see where that leads. And then
You taking a family with you?
well, we don't know yet. So we're kind of in between whether or not I'm gonna sell my house here in California and we're moving, because I don't want to be here no more. But I'll be honest, like, that's up to God. God will open that door, and I'm just walking in faith with him where he wants me to go. So I'd like to get back to Tennessee, but if that's not where he wants me, then I'm just going to be wherever he wants me, man.
Spoken like a true hero, man. Any final words?
Yeah, just want to say, I miss all of you that I've had the opportunity, and I'm proud, to get to share this, and I'm truly grateful to all the people that I got to serve with. They all mean something, whether I like you or not. And I can truly say there's no one in my life anymore that I hate. But every one of those people, whether I had a problem with you or not, I've learned something from you. You had an effect in my life, and I'm grateful. And whether there's a forgiveness in your heart that you might need to forgive me if I wronged you. I didn't mean to wrong you. I was just a selfish person. But and I just want to thank you, brother, for doing this, man.
Oh, Joe, I appreciate you, man. I'm going to continue my legacy of, I believe in giving people their flowers and telling them the significance they had in my life or just to the world, but I only can speak on my experiences with you. I've enjoyed my time in Afghanistan with you, in the Med. I know you were, like you said, the whole show, you're quick-tempered at times, but I always understood your passion. That's one thing I understood about you. You cared about people. When we're in the Army at that young age with a lot of stress, sometimes we just don't know how to package things and deliver them. And I was even a victim of it. And as we get older, you're in your late 40s. I'm hitting 45 next week. As we get older as men, we start realizing that, 1, we do become very soft. 2, we start to really learn how to love people, because we realize that if we continue to lose relationships, we'll be by ourselves. And it's something that I don't think a lot of people want to live with. But you've never done anything to me. I know we've never even had a problem, because I've always understood you. I was like, hey, that's Joe. Just let Joe be Joe. Let him do what he has to do. But I always appreciate you, man. The good times we had, the bad times, the memories, you reaching out to me. If you need anything from me, let me know. You need to get back to Tennessee, let me know. Maybe I could, just be intentional. Whatever you want in life, be intentional about it. You want to come to Tennessee, be intentional about it. Pray on it, obviously. Discuss it with your wife. But brother, I appreciate this last 3.5 hours with you. I'll always consider you a friend. And like I said, if you ever need anything from me, ask me. All right. And let me tell you no, because shit, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure you're good, bro.
Oh, I appreciate that, brother. And that's a two-way street, man.
In closing, stay bold, stay fearless, resilience wins battles, and story shapes legacies. This is Heroes Have Wings. I'm your host, Jason Santiago. This is my buddy, Joe Wonacott. We've known each other quite some time now. Listen to his story. Make sure you guys follow. Joe, I appreciate you. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Make sure to share and subscribe to the channel and keep spreading the word. This is Jason Santiago, and we're out. Thank you for tuning in to Heroes Have Wings, where we honor the extraordinary stories of grit, sacrifice, and resilience. Remember, every hero's journey starts with a single step, so take yours today. If you love this episode, like, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep pushing limits, breaking barriers, and living your truth. I'm your host, Jason Santiago, and this is Heroes Have Wings, where legends rise.